Oh, look at that.
Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer in Wisconsin, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. So, joining me, as always, is my co-host and my partner from last week's Holy Havoc. It's Tom. How you doing, buddy?
Hello, friends.
Good to have you along, Tom. Also here, it's Eric and Davey. It's the Mortal Realms crew. There it is. Yep. They are, as you can see, Lady and the Tramp style. They have to share a set of headphones.
Already had the spaghetti.
Because I am. Here you go. Where this is where I am.
Woo!
Hi. Whoa. That's how far away from them I am right now.
He's actually dismembered.
Correct. Yes. We're visiting, and I'm visiting them up in Wisconsin.
Little did you all know, Vince is actually part wanderer, and he can go from one board edge onto another.
That's correct. I blew the way pipes and came up here, and decided to visit. We had a fun game of Siege last night.
Yes, it was amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. You want to talk about that for a second?
Real quick. Sure. So I had Vince. Vince came up to Madison, called out to a couple people, see who was available last night. We went to one of the local game shops. I toted over all my terrain, including my terrain board from this last weekend. Not the board itself, but the scenery that sat on top of it. Built a vampire castle, or part of the idea I have for my vampire castle. And Kenny Lowell and Vince here sieged it. They sieged it with their fire slayers and some of my Vince used some of my stormcast. He made me kill some of my own paladors. It was heart-wrenching. But it was a lot of fun. Some really cool mechanics. It's a super simple layer of this, adding a siege phase where you kind of do a paper, rock, scissors game. And then you go through each of your scenery, all the scenery pieces on the defender side. You blow them up. You try and blow them up. You go through all the units on the defender side. You try and starve them out. And then there's a opposing dice roll for tunneling,
yes,
which is kind of fun. So yeah, I mean, it's just simple mechanic, but it lets you, I guess the way I would just, after processing it, I mean, is it lets you put, like, you always put scenery on the table, but this lets you, like, use scenery, like, choose to place it in a tactical way.
Right.
And then the attacker gets to, like, take it off.
Yeah, it's fun. Absolutely. It's destroying terrain, which is, like, in my mind, a thing that's sort of, I want to have happen more.
Yeah.
Let us not talk about the Holy Havoc incident of 2016.
Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, exactly. The one I think call Steve's ever made that I strongly and completely disagree with still to this day. He should have let you destroy that spider.
Tarkos, he rolled that command ability for that particular mission. And in an alternate reality where Steve Herner was a nicer guy, that Huskard killed that spider.
I believe that happened.
Yeah, that did happen, clearly.
But yes, I agree. Siege was fun, and we were already talking about ways we could layer more rules on top. So hey, why not? There you go.
Yeah.
All right. But of course, we're going to go over Holy Havoc for the Mortal Realms crew, who of course walked away with best overall. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Yeah, they're blue.
Thank you.
They attached right here. Best overalls.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody.
That is
They added a fashion show this year.
I can't actually hear everybody who's watching this not laugh at that joke, but yet somehow I can.
There's like a 1,000 voices screaming in the night.
Yeah. You all are getting it for one episode. I had it the whole weekend, so it sounds like
You've heard that joke one time. I heard that joke all weekend.
Yes, not often enough because you're still making the same terrible jokes
forever.
Yeah.
But let's so we're going to talk about that, but of course let's start out with the news. So Tom, take us away, buddy. What do we got?
Dun, dun, dun. Let's jump to the rumor engine.
Sure, I'll share up. That sounds fine. Here we go.
Enhance.
So this is an interesting one because it could be lots of different things.
So Vince,
I'm screen sharing here. Hold on.
Hold.
So how do we? You're gonna have to present it or something, right? Because your audio is just it's using.
It should be locked on me.
It's locked on Tom right now.
No.
Yeah.
Nope. Okay. Never mind. There we go.
Okay.
on my screen, it's locked
So-
on me.
Okay.
Oh, well, first I have a funny statement about this.
Okay.
There's a
Hit me.
member of our community on Twitter who saw this, and you might see that person sometimes bringing a negative vibe to conversations. He looked
It's
at
not
this
me,
and
right?
No, it wasn't you. But the comment when he saw this was, "That's a thorn bush." Like,
Nailed it.
when clearly in the middle is the rose.
Well, I mean, a rose is just a thorn
Well,
bush
I mean-
with a few pretty distractions on it.
But if you see
It's
just the thorn
camouflage.
bush, if you're not seeing the rose, it's definitely a worldview indicator.
Yeah, you're seeing it's a glass half empty statement. Yeah, so here's the rumor engine. It is a couple of vines with a rose in the middle. Obviously,
Are
that's-
those vines or is that a bone?
Well, the one running along the side is clearly a vine because you can see
Yes.
the thorn.
Yeah,
Vertical
you see the
ones.
thorns, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the other direction, the perpendicular one.
It could be it could be. It's hard. So where it's cut off on that side, it could be another arch of a thorn,
It could be.
but it could be a joint. It bends weird on the left side,
Yep. That's
you
what I
know,
was looking at.
so I don't. That bend is a little weird for a bone, but it could be.
I mean, let's do the very quick rundown here. What aesthetics contain this rose thorn imagery?
Garden of Moor.
Yep.
Like Garden of Moor is like that is. Let me say this: having painted all of the flowers on Garden of Moor very intricately, I can attest that is the flower, the same shape, the same petals, the same everything of the Garden of Moor roses.
Sure, but it's not the only instance of it. They use the same rose on the Coven Throne. The stairs of the Coven Throne has the same set of roses on it.
The Empire Wizard kit has a scythe that has roses and thorns on it.
Correct.
Yeah,
All the
that's
Moror,
The Mormor?
the Mormor,
The
all
Moor.
the death stuff, the Shaiish stuff. I have a microphone now. I want to use it. I want to. Yeah, it's very exciting. Anyways, this is like such a higher quality setup, and yet somehow worse. I've managed to do both at once.
Well, so input is very high quality.
Right.
It's the output that we need to work on.
So, all the death stuff, like Shaiish traditionally had this aesthetic to it, right? The thorny rose.
Sure.
So, I will also give a slight mention here. Sisters of Battle have roses, thorn roses.
legit all over.
That being said, this is definitely for death. Like, this is certainly the death release. We know Malign Portents is coming. This is something in that to harken back to that more.
Just more. Just more. That's
To
it.
that theme. To the Shaiish theme. That's what I'm saying. That's what it is.
Everyone
Yeah.
knows that's what it is. No need to be shyish about it.
Indeed.
You don't have to do that, Tom.
That was a stretch. That was a real stretch.
Yeah, I know.
You guys know when you comment on them, you just make me do more of them.
Everybody be cool. All right.
Be cool.
So there you go. I mean, Tom, Eric, maybe any other thoughts? Does that make sense?
Death.
Any other?
The answer is
Elves?
death.
Elves.
Possibly. But probably death.
Do you see? I mean, there's definitely love in the air, and that's elves.
I'm going to side with Tom that I think that is a bone underneath. I do agree with you that it's got a weird bend in it, but I don't think that's that strange. Like, I think that it's not going to be. It's going to be something like a piece of adornment or accoutrement on a death thing, and so the bone is sort of jutting off at an off angle or something.
Yep.
Like that. Not actually like an arm or a leg.
Right.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and what makes you think of bone is the curve that's right here on the right hand side. That shadowing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. This
that
totally
feels
looks like a joint.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
The left one doesn't look as much like a thing, but
No, it
this is
doesn't.
weird. But who knows? Who knows?
Okay.
people at GW.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they probably do. Some of them
That's a
do
good
at
point.
least.
They do know. All right. Tom, back to you.
Okay, let's jump over. We had our army box bundles confirmed.
Yeah, I love this.
Dun, dun, dun.
We were talking about this last week, and saying, "Boy, I really hope we get army bundles." But if we haven't seen them yet, we're probably not going to get them. And then, like the next day,
Wow. Bam.
they are.
Overlords.
So
There you go.
Overlords.
Yeah. just in time.
new Stormcast, Zinch Arcanites, and Death. One of these is not like the other. Right?
Death being a Grand Alliance instead of a smaller. Is that what we're getting at?
No. Well, I mean, that is an observation. My
Certainly you're saying there's two orders of chaos and a death, and there's no destruction, right?
Oh, right.
No. Well, yes, all that is true.
So that is also an observation.
Okay, Tom, go somewhere with this. You're
so the observation I was making was that 3 of these are new releases this year, and one of them is not.
Yeah.
KO, the new Vanguard Stormcast, and the Zinch Arcanites are all the new kits, new models. The Grand Alliance Death, there is nothing new in that box.
Right. I think that's pretty on trend. I mean, last year it was Fire Slayers,
Iron Jaws,
Stormcast.
No, it was not Fire Slayers. It was Iron Jaws, Stormcast, Korn, and Sylvaneth.
Okay, so those are all new releases from last year. So that makes sense. Except for there's not a Zinch. No, there is Zinch.
There is.
Yeah, the Zinch was our first launch this year, and we got the box. And it was all the new sculpts too. Let me point that out. Like it's the Zangor, the Arcanites, the Skyfires, the Shaman, that whole deal. None of the demons. So I don't know. Do any of these bundles appeal to y'all?
They're all 170, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean it's hard for me to tell because I can't see exactly what's in them.
I mean, I can tell you what's in them.
Okay, it's like the KO ship looks like it has a frigate.
It's a frigate. It's a medium and the small ship.
Yep.
It's the 10 of the foot boys, 3 of the balloon boys, and an admiral. And it might also have another foot hero, like not a chemist.
Like there's 2 foot heroes in there.
Yeah, like it has an admiral and I think an Endrin Master.
Yeah. The Eternals one clearly has some birdies, some Paladors.
It has 6 long strikes. It has 10 hunters. I think, the Aqualore.
Yeah, that would probably be the one that I'd be most likely to get. I've already got 9 Paladors, so I don't know that I need more.
Yeah, it would just be difficult because with Blight War, like I have 2 boxes of Blight War.
Yep.
Yeah. And I just need the Aqualore.
eBay stock on that too.
Yeah, exactly. And then like the Arcanites, like it's 20 of the Carrick Acolytes, it's 20 of the Zangor, it's 3 Skyfires, I think, a Shaman, and I think maybe 1 more model.
I would just like to point out that we started this little road we're walking down right now.
Yes.
With Tom saying confidently and with complete assurance, "Oh, I can tell you what's in them." And now we're in the, well, I think it's this.
Well, I can. I just don't. I don't want to pull up the list.
Okay.
Because then I have to swap windows, and by doing that, then this goes away, and I'm bad.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, but like a list has been published of exactly what's in these boxes.
Gotcha.
I do this on TGA, and some part of this is from memory, part of it is me looking at the picture. And then like the one below the Grand Alliance is like 10 skeletons, 10 Graveguard, 2 of the Morghast, Nephrata, and a White King, I believe.
Yeah, I think look, they're a good deal. Would I buy any of these? No, but it's pretty rare I buy these big army ones because I have to be really wanting to get the new army, and I'm not in that place right now. You know, that Tau one looks pretty cool. That's pretty sweet. I dig that one.
Ridiculous.
How are you on Kharadron? Does that
like 6 months ago for sure. Taking like the hyper disciplined approach of like paint what I got before I get the next thing.
I convert too much to buy. I mean the Stormcast, that one I haven't converted them too much, so I could see that box, but everything else I've converted so much.
I can see somebody, probably not somebody who's like looking at net list, because the frigate and the gun hauler are not top choices in the net list style things, but yeah, unless if you're not chasing that sort of thing, then it's also, I think I remember seeing that like about $70 of this is free.
These are all at the 30% mark. The biggest discount here is the Stormcast Eternal one, which I think is at like a 34% or 36%.
But if you've been holding off to get into any one of these, it's a great
it's a great place to start. That's exactly right. Yep.
These are smart.
I mean, I always like seeing these things because these are the kind of things that will get people into new armies and make it easier for them to do so.
Yeah.
So I want to see, like, I love that they do these around Christmas. I want to continue to see more of these all year round.
Yeah,
frankly.
Sure.
Yep.
And hopefully, I mean, you got to keep that in your mind too, because I never think to expect these later on in the year.
Right.
And so, like, next year, whatever comes out, not to say you shouldn't get it when it comes out, and but if you're waiting for a good portion of them, could wait. Good thing.
Definitely. So yeah, this is here. It's coming. I'm kind of excited.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, like
you picking up that Orc Speed Cult 40K lot? Looks like a good one.
Nope. I can tell you that's not happening. Other stuff. Last week the Citadel app, the Paint app, was updated, and so there's a little bit new functionality to it. Like you can scan stuff and have information, and you can like store paints that you need to buy or something, and some other stuff. So there's a zoom function integrated, I think, now, and I don't know.
Oh, I always just look closer.
That's a good plan. Yeah, they added the thing that lets you more easily click the take a picture and it'll tell you what the paints are.
That seems pretty rad to me. I heard a lot of other people like really talking up the I can make a list of what I've got, or like I can make a shopping list with it. And I was like, what? Like, do you guys not own paper? Like, what is going on? But like taking a picture of something and being able to like snag, say this is the colors I need. That's rad. That's cool. That's something I can't do.
I like
with
list making.
You're lazy, so I get it.
I just always have my phone with me. I don't always remember my paper.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it is weird how we've advanced into 2017 and somehow cell phones don't have notes or note-taking features on them. I thought that's really weird.
Well,
Apple and the other major phone producers would leave that very common functionality off.
I do that often.
Oh,
they do. It's called notes.
It's sarcasm. Sarcasm.
Here's the thing, though. You open up that notepad and you're like, okay. And you have to look up and you got to type in every single character of all these ridiculously long named paints.
You know the new one has like a speaking recognition, right?
Yeah, but what of the paints that are on your rack are you going to recognize?
Well, so you say that so the irony here is that you say that, but I've used a number of words commonly enough that like my phone autocorrects to Volkite now. Like that is a normal, like that is a inherent part of my iOS now. It's like, oh, I know what that word is.
I tried to speech to text Ale Guzzler Gargant to Davey, and I don't want to tell you what came out.
he made 3 attempts, and it was getting more and more confusing. I was like, I'm gonna put this down. I
offended him.
Well, I was about to call 911. I was figured he's having a stroke because it was.
Okay, so the
giant.
Yes, the last.
Too easy.
Why would I do that?
Way too easy. So the last bit of news that we have this week. Well, okay. So we had 2 events this week, obviously, Blood and Glory and Holy Havoc. Holy Havoc, we led with that at the top of the show. We had some success. That's our main segment, so I'm not going to talk about Holy Havoc a whole lot more. But for Blood and Glory, they had a seminar much like the Adepticon seminar, and we had some reveals for AOS. And those, let's just start with the Shadespire Skaven team.
Yeah.
Yeah, rad.
Now, we haven't seen the whole team yet, right? This is only 5 of the 6. That is what I have heard.
No, yeah, here. So 1, 2, 3, 4,
5.
5. There are 5 in
5.
the video.
Yeah, I guess so.
6 of these guys.
Are there?
That was the rumor.
Maybe he's an assassin. Maybe he's hidden.
Well, that is the story. Like there was the rumor going around is that they kept the 6th hidden, but they didn't say why. Because either he is a sneaky assassin that might have special deployment rules, like maybe he doesn't set up at the beginning, or he could be a ranged focus character and clearly be throwing something when there's not really any ranged focus.
Yeah,
he's melee right now.
Yeah.
Or he could be a big giant monster rat and be very unusual.
or like a rat ogre.
Yeah, like a rat ogre style.
Rat ogre.
Traditionally, like Skaven warbands in other games had a rat ogre as their component. If you think of like Blood Bowl or Mordheim or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I'm pretty interested in these guys.
Yep.
I dig them.
I love this dude with his hand on the ground. Like he's,
man.
Yeah, and we had some rumor images spoiled here with this arch.
Yeah, I love
that.
Yeah, that arch was an engine. It was a rumor engine picture. We didn't know what it was forever. Everybody's guessing terrain, but no, I love that in the end it was my use of terrain basing material, the only proper use of terrain.
What I love about that guy is that he's posed exactly like the
Oh.
Vermin Lord from
Forge World.
So he's he's a little too big for his britches, I think.
He's like, I know how this works.
I saw someone cool do this once.
That's exactly right. No, they all look great, and that'd be awesome if they ended up with a rat ogre or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like them all except Nunchuck guy. I've never liked Nunchuck rats. I don't know if you there. I think there he is. He's in that picture, that front dude.
I guarantee.
Never.
He's over here.
Yeah, that guy.
Never in any of the many times you've encountered nunchuck rats have you liked them?
Never.
Never.
Zero times.
Yeah.
I think back to the original scene in the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I knew you were gonna go there.
When Splinter tricks Shredder with the nunchucks and gets him to flip over the edge into the garbage truck where Casey Jones kills him using Michelangelo's lost nunchucks that were hooked on the roof access.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you're in the minority there.
Deep
buddy.
cut.
That is, there you go.
Deep cut.
Anywho, the assassin rat with the claws is sweet. Like the dude on the left in the top picture.
Yeah.
The guy with the double like blades. I've always liked that
Wolverine
aesthetic. Yeah, the Wolverine style rats.
I like that they clearly look. I mean, because I think the clan rats that exist now are really awesome. Same with the storm vermin, and these guys just carry on that aesthetic, and they're just executed really well. But they would seamlessly blend in with the existing Skaven, which is obviously what they're.
Well, it's nice too. Yeah, I mean the existing Skaven are so I mean the thing with all our models from 8th edition is they're all meant to confine to their 25 mil by 25 mil space, and these guys break out of that, and it feels really good to see them. What would Skaven be like in action? And there's crawling, jumping on all fours sometimes.
Yeah, good point.
It's good to see them in a more characterful.
Really use the space, break out, use
explore
the space.
Explore the space.
Yeah. No, like just real quick here. I just want to put a pin on something that I feel is important. And that is something you just said. I think, Davey, you're dead on, that they fit in perfectly with the older existing Skaven. So one of the things that it rears its ugly head every so often is, the AOS aesthetic is going to change everything, right? Everything changes. And then you give an example like, well, Khorne still looks like Khorne, or Tzeentch still looks like Tzeentch. You're like, oh, well, those are chaos things. And those are supposed to look the same. Those don't count. Everything else but them is different. All right. Skaven, I understand they sit in the Chaos Grand Alliance. Fine. But that's incidental at best. Skaven are a bunch of mortal living rats. They aren't demons. They aren't changeless beings from another realm. They're just rats that live in the sewers. Okay. And their aesthetic, I agree with you, looks like just a really great version, a pseudo individualized version of the clan rats and the warlord and everything you saw in the previous edition. So like, it's clear that we will carry on aesthetics where appropriate.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that dude, I would pick up this pack just to get a brand new Skaven warlord in that warband.
Yeah,
totally. I think he's one of the sweeter warlords they've ever made.
Well, and I'll say to that too, I mean, all the end time stuff was them exploding out some of the ranges. So like Storm Fiends are definitely AOS Skaven.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, but all the base model stuff, I mean, that stuff's not changing. We're not getting changes to old battle line.
Yeah, these dudes are just sweet looking clan rats with a sweet looking warlord. Yeah, right on. Amen. All right. Can we talk about the chick? Can we talk about the War Queen next? Can we talk about this chick?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I am beyond excited for this figure, dude. Oh, this is amazing. This is great. So this is the War Queen, right? She's the Dark Oath Chieftains leader, like boss. Yeah. And I dig her. I dig the heck out of her. Because everybody's calling her Red Sonja, which I'm with. I agree with that appraisal.
Yeah, why not hearken?
I mean, maybe it's the angle of the photo. Does the pose look off at all?
I mean that it's foreshortening. That leg on the left would be more easily read, turned a little bit. Mm-hmm. So that it's either pointing more to the side. Otherwise, I mean, foreshortening always looks weird on.
Yeah, plus she's kind of like contrapposto or whatever you say, right?
Right. Yeah. So,
Yeah, it's just like there's something about her pose that reads awkward to me. And it reads like how like old 80s sculpts were a little bit awkward.
I don't know, man. I
just want to see her at a different angle. Like I'm not gonna pass judgment. I just want to see her at a different angle. Like I'm interested to see like if it's just the angle of the picture.
I wonder if she'll be like the what the other one's called, a ward.
Dark Oath Chieftain.
Dark Oath
Chieftain.
Yeah.
Wonder if she's gonna have like an alternate left hand where she got an weapon.
Oh, an axe. Yeah.
Good call. I would love that because it's funny you said that. The only thing I don't like about this fig is I don't like the little round shield.
Yeah.
Yeah, like something about that little round shield just is like, I don't know.
Jarring.
It feels too weak.
Yeah.
Right? Like she's got a big old axe in one hand.
Right.
And that shield just feels like this little buckler.
Yeah.
I mean, at minimum, I would give her like a big old chaos shield if I was going to convert her.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I forgot that the Dark Oath had that alternate left hand that was holding like a Xangor head, right?
A head or an axe.
Yeah. So like, I hope she does have. I hope they continue that. Now let's ask the controversial question.
Yep.
Controversial question time. Did they take the picture at this exact angle? Because this is the only angle where you would not be able to see whether or not she has heels on. Which is always like the stupidest and most controversial thing of any female miniature is whether there is a hint of heel.
That's amazing.
In her boots. This is the one angle where you would not be able to see that.
It's
out of
true.
The 300 available degrees, this is the one.
And if that is intentional, the irony here is that would explain why the angle of the photo feels off.
Yep. In trying to hide the heels, if they're there or not.
Yeah.
Because every time there's always there's the diehard adherents and the people who hate it. And they come out of the woodwork about this silly thing. But it's out there. The hate is real, my friends.
I mean, we're all looking for a sensible shoe that we can chop heads with.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't want to disregard that feeling.
Yeah. Sure. Eric's heels held up all weekend. So
yeah.
They were good.
Those are my trade show heels.
So there you go. That's my. I am wondering if that's the reason she's in this particular angle.
And if you're wrong, you're just being a heel.
Yeah. And then we had some 40K stuff.
Oh, can I say one more thing about her real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So she's Dark Oath as well.
Yep.
And the question has been bandied about of should we get a Dark Oath sub-faction?
Yep.
Opinion. Would you like to see a new release of a barbarian-focused chaos faction called, like the Dark Oath?
No. Barbarian-focused Free People's Order faction is what I'd like to see. Okay. I'd love to see the people as they've become in the Age of Chaos. They're not in pretty cities with feathers. They can't keep their feathers nice and neat. They can't keep their pantaloons pantalooned.
They basically look like the humans at the beginning of the first Terminator movie.
Yeah. Right. I mean, like in all the books, we're meeting people that are in more of a tribal, more primal state. In all the books, and I would love to see these guys be kind of that space between order and chaos, be a gray faction like Fire Slayers are.
Well, it's interesting you say that, as I'll repeat something that came up at Nova now that I actually mentioned this to Tom already. So I directly asked Pete Foley the question at Nova of, have you considered having gold factions? What I mean by gold is like gold magic cards where they're both red and green, right? So that's traditionally gold cards and magic are multiple colors.
Legit.
So have you considered exploring the design space of having gold factions, i.e. the Order and Death or something like that, right? Yeah. And he said, yes, that is a thing we have thought about. He did not say any more than that, but just that, yes, we have thought about it.
Yeah.
And he also said a few minutes later that if you think about humans, because somebody asked, where are all the human releases? And he said, well, humans are one of the hardest things we tried to nail because they have one of the most challenging aesthetics because they can't just be boring humans. There has to be something interesting about the hook of them. There has to be a narrative, a theme.
Certainly not business suits.
Sure, absolutely. Just running around, middle management, basically. They show up and attack chaos with paperwork, make them fill out forms in triplicate. It's the HR department assault.
Red tape is our weapon.
Exactly.
Sounds terrifying.
it's time. Oh no, they've unleashed their command ability, yearly performance evaluation. So but he pointed out that like one of the interesting things about humans is that they would fit in all 4 factions. Like as it is, you could have humans who have gone fully sort of tribal, destructive, barbaric, and they beat destruction. They could have given themselves over to the dark gods. We've obviously seen chaos humans the whole time in the history of Warhammer. We know there are order humans, they're in Azir. There's no reason they couldn't still be good. And of course, there could be some death cult type, Nagash worshipping humans on Shaiish.
All of those are in the stories. The audio drama had the Moore's End people who would come and give their tithing, their offering.
I mean, Shadespire itself is that.
Well, it's certainly in people in Shaiish, and obviously have been there are people living in the realm of death. So I mean, whether they're for or against, but they've learned to live in harmony with dem bones.
Yeah. All right.
And then finally, the new Age of Sigmar logo that's being rolled out with the Malportants. So.
It's darker now. Whoa, the world is changing.
Now, new label now by Zack Snyder.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. It's so dark. Yes, like I mean, okay. They revealed that. I was like, that's neat. Here's what I said to Tom when they revealed this. I said, everybody should be super excited about that change.
Yep.
Okay. I really mean that.
Okay.
Let me sell you on why that's the case. You should be
be
beyond excited about the change of the AOS thing.
Okay.
Here's why. Because all you people who really want death, if you count yourself among someone who wants to see a big release, who wants to see the return to AOS, who wants to see death come out in a big way.
Want Nagash to win everything.
Sure, whatever the case. You want to see a serious set of releases, right?
Yeah.
Consider how significant the surrounding event has to be that you go all the way up to changing the logo.
You upgrade your sheen.
Like, that's my point. All these other releases that have come out, they've never had they like for the narrative event or other things, they didn't like have a KO themed, cog and gear focused thing.
Yep.
That's a top level thing that if they're willing to change that, consider how many things under that have to be filtering down.
Yep.
There has to be a new narrative event around it, multiple releases around it, novels around it, right? On and on and on, right?
Fair.
So if they're going all the way to the top, this is that what they showed us, as my suspicion, is the tip of a very deep iceberg.
Yep. I think that this is where we're going to get our Fallen Stormcast. But I don't think that they're going to go chaos like what everybody wants, Horus Heresy-esque. I think what you're going to get is you're going to get a sideways faction where Nagash is going to get his due. And where he will. So one of the things
you're going to get the death focused. You're going to get the death.
Yes. You're going to get Deathcast.
Like a Night Hunt Stormcast.
Yeah, what'll happen is that, so we already know that the reforging, like, Nagash is feeling cheated by the Stormcast.
Oh, yeah.
And so now what's going to happen is Nagash is going to find some way to circumvent that process, such that he gains access to those souls, which is super compelling, super interesting. Like, so imagine a world where the Stormcast have been reforged. Some of them. There was an event today where they did, where they talked about specifically about the. They talked about
the Stormcast and their fluff.
The Stormcast and their fluff. That's exactly right. And one of the things that they talked about in this discussion of the Stormcast and the fluff, it was with Phil Kelly, was that the farther they go down this road, the more the flaws in each of the chapters are going to become apparent. Like what those flaws are, and those are going to manifest themselves in rules and other things. And I think that what we're going to
the hatred of avocado dip. I mean, obviously.
Clearly. So if you all are familiar with like the Black Armored Stormcast, I think it's the is it the Heldenhammer? No, the
Anvils of the Heldenhammer.
Yeah, Anvils of the Heldenhammer. If you read their lore, they're like to the point. They're so ancient to they're the point of being like soulless, or there's this like language of them being silent and da 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 da. It would not surprise me if like that is the faction that Nagash comes in and be like, oh, they've already been hollowed out, and then sends in like the spirit hosts to manifest and to occupy those bodies. So you don't even have to.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, he's examined that Stormhost already in the fiction. When they tried to make parley with him, go an envoy, he betrayed him. So whatever.
But he's had interactions at least, is what you're saying.
Sure.
Yeah.
Looked at him closely, more closely than any of the others so far.
Yep. My guess is that that's the one, and those are already the black armored ones. So like you're already halfway there for what you need.
I've already got those. That's what my Stormhost is modeled, and I've got them painted up as my death, like partnered with death. So
there you go.
I'm ahead of the meta, the fluff meta,
hipster,
the lore meta.
Absolutely, yeah. Can we talk about 2 of the things that he revealed today that I thought were interesting?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
The Celestial Warbringers.
Yeah.
Were the tribe that can see their own death. Like they all have that Cyclops curse from Krull, where they know the moment of their own death.
Yeah.
So they're fearless as a result of that. I thought that was an amazing.
It won't be today.
Well, and that's very Phoenix Temple-esque, because that was always the thing with the Phoenix Guard, is that they had that ability. That was the witness to destiny. Like that's why the whole witness to destiny is they know they don't die today.
Yeah,
that's where they get that ward save.
One guy's like,
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna die today.
I'm dying today, so I'm just gonna stay home with.
He goes in the flames. He's like, really, goblin arrow in the eyeball? God dang it,
man.
All right. Well, I guess.
The other one was the Lion of Sigmar.
Yeah.
Right, and so the thing stating that they're it's still in development, and that they're you said like they're big on this lightning strike and having a big roar and stuff like that. So. The thing that immediately occurred to me was we have a couple images floating around
of lions,
of lions,
yep,
and various lion things. I mean, now at the same time, we should point out that even though we don't normally talk much 40K, they did basically reveal that there's going to be another.
Lionel.
You know what the next Primarch is, and yeah, it's Lionel Johnson. So the lion himself, right? So like. Now it's hard to we have to disentangle which of these lion images we've seen are 40K images and which of these lion images are AOS for the Lions of Sigmar, because they're clearly both in development simultaneously.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Who knows?
Exciting.
Still.
That's what matters. It's exciting.
All right.
What else?
So that's the news. I think that's it, right?
Oh. All right. Rock and roll. So now we have to do a little pick of the week. So, gentlemen, oh, that's right, ambush. I didn't mention this at all.
I mean,
you've been here. You've been here.
Oh no! Speaking of ambushes, let's back up. We're gonna back this whole train up.
Okay. Right into an ambush. Is that
right into an ambush? Okay. So it was pointed out on Twitter. That let me pull up this image. It's a very important image for us that we need to examine.
Critical image. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Gotcha journalism in progress.
So it was pointed. We've already talked about.
I already know where this is going.
It was pointed out on Twitter. Relian, with his sharp eyes, acknowledged that when Steve thanked the sponsors for Holy Havoc, Mortal Realms was on there, and they're the ones that won best overall. Is there a connection? I think maybe so.
Yep. So
are you willing to go on record?
Wow.
Do you guys want me to be completely transparent?
Well, hey, are we on record or are we under oath? Like, can we clarify that before I make?
You're just on record. You're free to lie. It's just going to be recorded.
Yeah. There's no actual.
No. By the way, there's no repercussions.
No. So the tokens that we provided cost exactly $65 to produce, and Herner and I split the cost on those. So I paid $35. Now, to be fair,
this all came out in the Paradise Papers. You may have read it.
Right? Yeah, this is a big deal. There was a lot of very hard-hitting journalism.
All that $35 came from other people who have bought tokens, and it just goes into like this thing. Like I never actually see any money from those. It just goes by to more tokens. So I had that's the specific arrangement. And then when we got there.
All of it's revealed.
We just stopped somewhere on the way to Yorkville and
he got a hot dog.
Truck stop. Yeah.
When he got there, he ate a hot dog because that's what you stopped. Yeah, I got it. I understand.
You know what? I'm sick of these accusations that we don't somehow deserve anything. No, we're here by a fluke. It's okay. We're fine.
Yeah.
You can
Everything's
call it
fine here.
question at all.
Everything's
fine.
okay.
This is fine.
Nothing is broken. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now
News is
we
over.
go to the pick
No,
of the week.
let me put one more thing.
All right, go for it. All right, keep going.
There's just one more thing.
Relian's just a little upset.
Yeah.
That I was so good
Mhm.
at Shadespire against him. I
Oh,
totally wiped him out,
No.
and he's
was
he's
there.
supposed to be really good at this, but I just killed him off. Like, how did third time playing, and it just
You're a
Yeah.
natural. is
We
what you're
played a
saying.
3-person game,
He had
Brilliant.
50 games under his belt.
and somehow there's only one loser, and that was Eric. Like,
It's amazing.
Davey, you're my teammate.
Yeah.
Come on.
not in Shadespire, I'm not.
No, you're right.
There was a lot of Shadespire this weekend. That
Yeah?
was actually, yeah, it was good.
It was all right.
I like the way those orcs play. that was good.
Mm.
All right,
All right. Are
pick
we
of the
done?
week.
Can we back out?
Now,
Yeah.
pick of the week.
All
All
right.
right, so gentlemen, would you like to go first?
Sure. So speaking of Shadespire, let me see if I can find it. There's a channel that out of the UK, I think.
Mhm.
I gotta see if I can find my.
You can just talk about it, and then we can put.
Well, I don't know the name of it. So he's just been going through and doing tactics, and doing like little introductions. One of the videos is 6 things you might have missed. So the Errant Painting
Okay.
is the channel, and
I'm
so
gonna write that down.
he and his wife are doing Shadespire Tactics games playthroughs. He does one where he talks about the 4 boards and which one's the best one for being the first to lay down. There's a few of them that when it's the first, if you use a few of them as the first, your opponent can trap you pretty easy. So
Interesting.
I won't spoil it, but Errant Painting, he's now going to get 1 million subscribers.
I'm sure that's exactly the next step. Yeah. All right, cool. I will link that down in the show notes.
Mhm.
Now, Davey, if you've got a different one, you can, or you can just write Eric's, your choice.
That's good. I don't totally know how this works, and this is probably something someone's already recommended, but I started finally listening to AOS Shorts.
There you go.
Right,
No, that's
so-
there's a good throw out. Yes.
I'm a big fan of having stuff in bite size, and lately he's been doing some masterclass that but even those, like his long ones, are done in an hour. And
Not like this show.
Some lessons we could all learn.
man, gosh. But they're anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, and they're on point, very focused. Not a lot of pizzazz and production and all that sort of thing. But if you want a lot of meat on the bones of what you're listening to, go check out AOS Shorts.
Very nice. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Like, it's good for a drive, good for like a short drive.
Yep.
The commute into work, you can usually get a bite-sized amount in. It can be a little intimidating to take on like the 4-hour podcast that is very common in the Warhammer world, right? This is an easy way to go about it.
Yeah.
All right, Tommy, what about yourself, man? What do you got?
I was called out earlier as to what my pick of the week needs to be, so I'm not going to disappoint. In the KO community right now, something miraculous has happened. Ellis
I
Priestley.
don't know if it's miraculous, but all
Maybe
right.
not. Ellis Priestley was approached by someone he knows that's a game designer, and asked for feedback on to like, it was a GW, like somebody on the design team asked him to kind of gather some feedback of ideas of how KO could be improved on or fixed, and so he solicited the community in the KO Facebook group, and a bunch of us have been providing feedback and interacting on that the last day or so. And so one, I think it's awesome that they're looking for feedback, and two, that a lot of the kind of concerns in the KO community seem to be unanimous, like across the board, and you can see some of that. And so I'm going to highlight that thread. So it's the Kharadron Overlords Facebook community, and particularly it's the thread that's been at the top for the last day.
What would you say the KO's relationship status is?
Complicated. That's exactly right.
I mean, look, can we just shelve all changes or needs for updates, because they just took second place in a tournament? So I feel like they're fine.
God,
Yeah.
I hate you.
And sixth, another.
Well, I would say that not all of the changes suggested are like buffs. So, like, one of those is that the suggestion that we might actually need maximum balloon troops per vessel. Like, that may be a change that needs to happen potentially. You know, like throwing 40 dudes in a frigate because none of the balloon guys take space. That might be a problem.
Sure, it just ends up looking like the house in Up. Yeah, it's
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But none of them can be targeted. Let's remember that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, they'll just float simultaneously behind the other side of the ship.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Like I said, I mean, I think we didn't talk about the winners from Blood and Glory, but obviously the top three were what? Tzeentch, Fire Slayers, and KO, right?
Fire Slayers, KO, Tzeentch. Let's be very clear.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing it in order. I was just slipshotting it. But yes, and then fourth,
Fire Slayers won with a quite somewhat abnormal list. And then what I would consider not in the standard, at least.
I mean, short legs isn't enough.
Ooh, ding. And then Gary Percival kind of sharpened the knife on his list. Ironically, Vince, in a way that you and I had been talking about. With that second engine rigger unit. Or that like micro mini engine rigger unit. And
I
then
told you. You gotta have the waves, man. I told you. You needed we had a long conversation about how KO players should think in waves.
Yep. And then ride the wave. And then obviously Tzeentch being Tzeentch. So
really?
Yeah, this is too like I like being able to lead in and really like enunciate. Like I can't do that normally. Yeah. I'm getting a microphone tomorrow. All right. I don't know where I'm gonna put it on my desk, but it's happening. All right. Cool. Very good.
Have it one of these.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Exactly.
And in this corner.
Hang it from the ceiling. Yeah. Like I feel like now they're fine now. They don't need any other adjustments. We're good. They took second place. You're fine. Everything's fine here. We're all good. Thumbs up. I like the list. The most important thing was you saw. I wanted to say this real quick about Blood and Glory. You saw, Eric, that Soulblight took ninth, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty stunning thing. So
clearly Soulblight needs no other help.
No other help. They're fine. They're good. Top 10ing.
You know who we're not seeing? Sylvaneth.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. There was like the first Sylvaneth army was quite a ways down.
Well, so is Ironjaws. Ironjaws weren't even in the top 25, top 30.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, they already had their one earlier on, so they're doing fine. They're okay.
So just shout.
Clearly some bad luck in this tournament.
Where did Squigs place?
Not in the building.
Ooh.
Outside the building.
Ooh.
They were in the parking lot.
That hurts.
Yeah. But I actually I thought there was a pretty good, if you look at like the top 10, top 20, there was actually a pretty good amount of diversity there. So I thought this was a lot of different lists represented. So it was good. All right. My pick of the week. I'm going to throw everybody's attention over to our buddy Rob. Rob Symes.
You the Korgorath video?
Well, I was just going to point to it in general. He's been doing his deep dive videos, his rundowns. They're about an hour, 30 minutes to an hour. And he runs down completely everything about a particular unit. Picks a single war scroll and just goes through stem to stern. How to use it, what it is, where it sits, story, what it is, what its job is, how it works for the rest of the army, like its purpose. I was actually going to point out the Laser Dino episode. He did one of the Bastillodon.
Nice.
Yep.
As we spent the first day of our Holy Havoc tournament fighting Bastillodons, like
it's
endlessly
true.
fighting.
Yep. Every game.
Laser Dinos.
Never saw one.
No, we just saw Korn and Nurgle.
I'm
But
jealous.
he breaks it
at least of the corn.
What were you saying, David?
So he's got a whole series of them out so far, or
he's been cranking them out.
Cool.
Nice.
Pretty much daily content.
Rob can crank it.
Yeah, I will link everybody out to that. He has various, since they're posted kind of across different forms of media, but I'll link to the podcast. It's probably the most accessible. So there you go. Check them out.
Nice.
All right. So let's talk about hobby time. So gentlemen, you're back from Holy Havoc.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. What did you immediately come back that night and start painting?
So I immediately came back and like cleaned this room. Like there was like things everywhere in preparation for Havoc, and you're like, I don't care if I'm like hobbying and cutting over like like clothing and like I mean like whatever was on here. like it was just not a productive space after I got back. So it was a clean, pretty much put things away, chop some stuff up, throw things away, get out of here, done, pack it up, kind of start fresh. So that was that. And then the next thing
I have. Can I just say that real quick?
Was that
you've made it farther than I have? Like I still have all of my pre-Havoc mess just laying everywhere. And I'm like, nope, not going clean. I have work to do.
Yeah. So then after that, I'm not 100% on what I'm doing next, as we've talked about. So I just did a little converting on my Shadespire models and didn't go overboard. I think my hunters, when the Hunters Vanguard come out, I'll do a little bit more. But yeah.
Would you like to solicit the community for some theme suggestions
for the next, for that other stuff?
Yeah.
Not yet.
All right.
Not yet. I will. I have done a little bit. The community's been good about it. I'll put out some videos.
We want to say, there you go. We're gonna force you to do videos. Yes, I agree.
Yep.
What about yourself, David? What about you? You painted. I get from what I understand, you're the one who actually,
carried the team.
Yeah, carried the team on the painting and hobby side.
Yeah. No, I
full points.
Yeah.
Well, probably on the play side too. To be fair, I mean, let's be honest.
All sides. Sports side. Eric's a
broad
jackass.
shoulders.
So. No, exact same boat. My my hobby area was it looked like a tornado had struck it. It was overflowing onto my daughter's art table right next there. She's like,
Etheric Storm, maybe.
Yeah, it was not good. So studying that, and then Shadespire assembly, and mostly the motivation is so I can keep on working on some KO. This is one of those weekends that motivated me to keep working on the army instead of I think when my bone splitters hit the table last year, I was like, I never want to see these guys again. So good alternate outcome on that. So
good. How many points do you have in on your KO right now?
11.
Did you get the full 1,500? Or you just get
no.
Yeah, right. That'll be the year.
I'm about 1,200 right now.
Okay.
So
not too bad.
Yep. With the next up to 1,500 is in some stage of assembly or painting. So. Yeah.
Well, then that means you're just an ironclad away from hitting that 2K right there.
Just one quick ironclad.
Party boat. Hashtag party boat. Yeah. All right. Great. Awesome. Very good. Tommy, what about yourself? Since you didn't clean up, what have you been working on?
Well, I've been waiting on a shipment to arrive for Mini Stomp, and indeed it is here. And so it was all of my Shadespire stuff. Just all of the Shadespire stuff. Sleeves and dice and expansions and just everything, and more boxes of engine riggers.
Plus
and so I immediately set about. I was hoping to get all my Shadespire stuff built yesterday so I could prime it last night. And I'm hoping to do quick paints on all of that in the next week and just spend a week doing, just kind of clean the palette, do those, and then I'm going to jump back into my my army stuff. After I have full Shadespire warbands, but I had to do a little bit of converting as well, and so that's what I did last night. Boom! It's happening, folks.
Nice.
It's happening.
Somebody tell Mengel.
The Kings are marching again.
Yeah, Tyler's gonna be coming after you for stealing his intellectual property.
So the Kings are marching again.
Cease and desist. All right.
Nice.
Cool. All right. I'm excited to see that play out. That champion, especially. You got plans, man?
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay. I suspect he's probably flying by the seat of his pants here a little.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do have the bits that I want to convert, which I have quite a bit of like the odds and end like bits. So I think I'll actually be able to make some really neat kind of combination stuff. More so than I had anticipated when I started this kind of like, I was like, oh, that'd be neat if I went like, because here's the reality. If Bone Rattle, Death Rattle drops, like the new book and all that, and I decide to pull that trigger, let's be honest, I'm going pure Tomb Kings. Like, I'm going to convert the whole army to Tomb Kings.
Nice.
Like, it's not going to be whatever the fluff is.
Yeah.
I have the bits to do it. I have hundreds of unassembled Tomb Kings shields and all that stuff. We're going Tomb Kings.
Yep.
And so I was like, well, I'm going to go Tomb Kings on that. Then I have to do it with these.
Sure.
And
so here's my question.
Yep.
Is converting on the Shadespire models is a funny thing because obviously the art right? You have to know what model is what on the cards.
Right.
Now, I think to me, you can convert it as long as you keep the weapons
Yes.
the same for the most
Yes.
part. Now, it depends on
Yes.
the warband. I think the skeletons are honestly the toughest one
Yeah.
because they're
Yeah.
all kind of similar.
Yeah, and
I
so it's
think-
funny. No, you're right, Vince. And what I had to do originally, I started doing it and I stopped because I needed to check myself and make sure that everything was going to be appropriate. And so like the mace guy, I had to find something that would be a good mace for
Amazing.
for
Yeah, the
amazing
Prince of Dust.
for Tomb Kings. And so yeah, like so that was the question, and I agree with you. You need to like,
Still laughing about that.
for example, for the big scythe guy, I'm going with the vulture, not vulture lord, the
The shop
Tomb
team?
King's axe, like the shaped axe from the guy that was riding the War Sphinx. He had a big old axe. No, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, it wasn't
sword.
him. No, it was the axe on one of the Snake Riders. One of the Snake
Oh,
Rider
yeah,
captains
sure. No,
had
I
like
know what you're talking about.
had stylized axe, and so I'm going to do
Yeah,
that for the
yep.
big scythe.
Sure.
So like things that are going to be appropriate for what those are.
Yeah.
But I haven't changed any of the poses, so anything that had a shield, I just replaced where the shield was, and I've tried to say like swords or swords, like spears / pole arms or spears and pole arms. Like I've
Yeah.
tried to go 1-to-1 on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My rule with this, so that was the one that I converted the most to, and that the warden needs the biggest head, most elaborate. Like he needs to be most present.
The guy
Yep.
with the cloak, for
Yep.
those who don't.
Yep.
And then
The boss.
the prince. So I left the petitioners alone
Mhm.
because they're they have the small stuff. They've just got plain heads, plain skulls. for
So which one is the prince? The prince is the one with the mace.
the Prince of
Yep.
Dust.
Yep.
All that dust in your office.
All
Yep.
of it.
That's all his.
That's his.
It's his.
All that the eye can see.
All of it, and can't see.
Good point.
But he just had this little ringlet crown. So I thought he
Mhm.
needed something a little bit more. The champion's pretty good from my work, aesthetic. I mean, he's got a helmet on, and whatnot. I haven't thought of anything for the dude with the sickle yet. I don't know the scythe.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm using one of the Ushabti pole arms with the super long blade. I'm using that as the great sword. I'm gonna cut the blade off and have that kind of curved Kopeshi blade as my great sword.
Yeah, boy. There we go.
Yep.
Cool.
I mean, I think the important part of any harvester conversion, the harvester being the guy
Harvester.
with the scythe,
Yep.
is that you should put some pants on him. That guy he's pants off, dance off. Like he is the only one who left his pants at home. He just threw on a shawl and grabbed a scythe and was like, "I'm good. Let's go to
So
war."
here's the thing: is if he was out in the fields when he died, that's one thing. But he was at the Harvest Festival, and it's a little bit like Mardi Gras in
Meets
Shadespire.
Burning
So
Man. Yeah.
so pants off is the only way they roll.
I mean, that's fair. I accept that. I'm just saying, I would do a leg swap. My conversion, that guy would be a leg swap.
Get him in some nice dungarees.
Yeah, exactly. Just something. Get something down there.
How
man.
about overalls?
No.
Oh, lordy. All right. My own hobby time has been non-existent since basically since the show last week.
Yep.
I have not touched a paintbrush. That is crippling to me. I'm about to get the shakes out of this. I'm not gonna lie. It's a problem because I've been on the road consistently since.
Your hobby's been
then.
hanging out with me.
Yeah, absolutely, which has been fun. It was good. It's good. But I need to get back to my desk.
Yep.
It's killing me.
If he doesn't leave soon, I'm gonna be non-metallic metalled.
Exactly. But on the bright side, we'll push up your contrast. It'll be really nice. So, but I've got a project on my desk still. I'm hoping to finish it to do some work this weekend when I'm home before I have to leave again. Because we'll be on the road again next week. I'm only home for like 48 hours and I'm going again. But if I'm home for 48 hours, I see that as 40 hours of potential paint time. So I'm excited about that. That's good. All right. So let's talk about Holy Havoc. Let's recap it. Now, Tom and I already did our recap on the way back.
Yeah, pretty shit one too.
It was passable at best.
Best audio since
Until now. This is going to be the new best audio in the show history. So that's nice. We got that going for us. Because apparently my cell phone microphone is way better than my actual microphone that I use for the show. So that's hilarious.
Because what sells more? Headsets for your computer or smartphones?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
You've got me on that dead to rights. So, but I wanted to, obviously we kind of talked about it, gave our thoughts, but I wanted to give both of you gentlemen talk about what you thought about the tournament, what you thought about the narrative elements that were added in there, maybe some other things you'd like to see in the future. And if you want to blow by blow a few of your games as well or whatever, that's fine. I mean, feel free to go if you want to comment on any of them.
Hey, I want to see your trophy.
He's getting it.
It looks very similar to yours.
Yeah, it's a real one. It's a little bit bigger than last year's.
Huh. Yeah, I guess it is kind of similar. Yeah. Or which one? I don't know. It looks kind of like yeah. Like
Tom Vince let you keep his too?
No, both of Vince's are at his house.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, that's right. You got multiples. That's right. By the way, congratulations again, guys.
Thank you.
So Holy Havoc this year. This is our second year as a team. Best year. I thought it was better than last year.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun last year, but I think there's a lot of cool things that made it different. Some of it's just being familiar with what we're getting into and seeing some of the same faces, right?
Yep.
The people that were there that are in love with the Holy Wars, Holy Havoc stuff is a great sub community, I guess. There's people that aren't on Twitter, aren't on YouTube. They just know about these events and come hang out, and that was really awesome. And when we got there, so we played. One of the things that was different this year was we got put into teams. So regardless of what warband you're playing or what alliance you're playing, you got put into either order, chaos, destruction, or death.
Yeah.
And which at first glance, we had a number of people that we were looking forward to playing against. You guys were in destruction. We were in destruction. You guys were in destruction.
Yep.
Relian and Brad and Andrea were in destruction.
I don't think they were destruction.
No.
They were death.
That's right.
They were chaos.
Chaos.
That's right. They were chaos.
They were the only order that was. There was a few others.
Yep.
Rotor and Broska and Johnny Hastings and his partner. People that'd be fun to play against. But we weren't going to play against them necessarily because we were all in the same alliance. However, what was great about that is that we got to play more people that we didn't know, that we hadn't played, and we made twice as many friends as we would have, I think, playing some of the same people we played before. So, Domus and Fleur, we're also just so they were, So I mean, that was a huge boon is just getting to play new players, new people that we hadn't played before, and making some really good friends.
A lot of really sweet guys. Yeah.
So that was the first kind of difference, but really cool thing added to the event. There was a little map that let us, to kind of track how each one was doing. That's something that I would love to see more prominent. It was kind of ancillary. It was kind of there to
I talked to Vargas some about this. So they have a map that was supposed to be tracking. It was being used to track what which alliance was in the lead. It was, for all intents and purposes, a graphical scorecard, right?
Yep.
Like it didn't hold any other, other than to have a pretty way of doing it. They were thinking about doing something more with that, and then they recognized that time is already an issue at Havoc with the complicated scenarios and tables.
Yep.
And the warlords are all bringing in factors above and beyond, whatever else. So I think they wisely took a step back because they hadn't had time to kind of step through. But if they can find a way, because
I think that's where we're going. That's what I would say. That's the direction that we're headed.
Yep. And Chad Hansen did a pretty amazing narrative event at PACA last year where it had exactly that. There were two teams working against each other, and and we got to, there was enough time where we could, you know, kind of collect together and say, okay, what's our plan? And ended up making some really cool stories where all of a sudden I was really invested in what the ghouls were doing over in this mountain pass table. And it was this, you know, like infestation of flesh eater courts. And the other side, actually, they had the same game, like played at least twice, maybe 3 times, but everyone thought it was amazing because it was just this cool story of like throwing more and more stuff at the ghouls and just not being able to root them out. The idea of like being more invested in what's happening at the other tables, I think that can really push the narrative up to another level. And I recognize that there's challenges that they'll have to overcome with it as far as time. But I think I would love if that's the way they go. Like I've had amazing fun at any kind of team event, but especially narratively, I think there's a lot of room.
Yeah, and I think it'd be like there's some pretty maybe smaller things they could do to push it around, because I agree there's a lot going on at Holy Havoc round to round, right?
Holy hell, yeah.
I mean, you've got 4 different objectives in any given scenario. Your warlord has a lot of complicated abilities on top of whatever your normal army is doing.
Yep.
And you've got another person. There's
Yep.
2 of you who have to communicate effectively as to what the heck you're actually going to do, right?
Yep.
But I think it'd be neat if there's sort of 2 easy ideas, I think, that pop immediately to my mind, which are put things on the map. They could have 4 little items on the map that people, if they captured, could give some small minimal buff to the entire faction.
Sure.
And make it purposefully not an activatable thing.
Right.
So like just a very simple, rememberable thing. Like everybody in Destruction, you get this thing.
Yeah.
Because you own this particular place on the map. Like a
Yeah.
very small, but a bonus you can just write down on your sheet and lock in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You took over the mill, hence you get this thing or whatever. I don't know.
Well, I think even making it like verbally a more significant part of, I know, like you said, not a lot of time, but even to like announce very clearly, maybe they did and I didn't hear it, who took the last round,
Right.
how much, who has how many spaces on the map, who's
Right.
controlling what percentage of the map, and making that me feel like, oh, I'm across from somebody who's in that faction who just took it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so just create that tension of, you know, who's at the top at the moment, kind of the king of the hill kind of thing. So
you could figure that out if you went and hunted it down, but it wasn't
Right. It wasn't, they weren't really like making a big deal out of announcing it. And by the way, that's not us bagging on them for it. Like they were running around like madmen all weekend. So like, you know, hats off to Steve and
Vargas was a straight hero, you know.
Yeah.
So
and Steve made an strong attempt to play in the event at the same time, which I think, you know, he's been running these events for a long time and nobody's running them for him. So to get a chance to play.
I think he broke himself of that desire at the same time. I think it's the first and last for that.
I believe he made an announcement. He's like, I've always said I would just love to play in one of my events, and I'm never gonna say that again. So
so to the point of the scenarios and that sort of thing, I remember from last year being just all over the place trying to figure out, you know, what scenarios, what am I going to go after, that sort of stuff. So one of the things that I did ahead of time, is one of the things I wanted to make sure, the most important thing to do at this event is have fun, to tell, you know, have some fun stories to tell, meet the people across the table, you know, smile, you know, all that kind of stuff, and take it easy. When you have that many scenarios, like our first game, if I were going to do a blow by blow, was us being like, what the shit? What, you know, like you're the first game in there, you're going from 0 to 60,
right?
And you're trying to keep up, right? And that was incidentally the game we got 1 objective on.
Yeah.
Right. But what I did ahead of time is I went through every scenario, and I shorthanded, made iconography, like shorthand, like hieroglyphics for each objective, so that we could easily look and see, is this a most models, most damage, you know, whatever it is.
Right.
Yep.
And so that, because that's the hardest thing to try and keep your eye on, is like, what is the victory condition?
Yeah.
So it was things like, you know, if one of them was like most damage within by a, you know, battle line unit within 16 inches of the warp stone. So I just had a shorthand, like I just need to remember those 3 things. Like we would read the pack a little bit before each game, but while you're playing, I just wanted to be able to quickly look at that and not worry about it. And that, and Davey had gotten a chance to look at the pack, but probably not as far in advance or as much because he was painting to his high standard that got us full paint.
Remarkably high standard.
But then what that allowed us to do too is when we got in the car to drive down, is that's what we spent our time on, reading through it. But then we had those cheats to look at just to keep our head in the game. And so that was our prep all the way down, was that choosing which ones we needed to worry about, and then having that, remembering the shorthand so that when we're in the game, we knew we could just easily reference and not be spending our time and our nose in there. And there was only one objective, I think, at the very last game that we got wrong. Yeah. But both of us were playing it wrong, so it worked out fine. And that's why we cheated and got best overall.
Oh, yeah. One of them.
Because we played that one of the scenarios wrong.
What did you think of the treasure and skill cards?
What I liked about that is it gave a little bit of incentive. So each one you've got the you could get a point for the mission objective, point for the warlord objective, for the warpstone crystal, and for terrain. And it made you think like, okay, a lot of times you're writing off one where you're like, man, this one's really unlikely. We have to have the most guys, and they have 70,000 plague bearers. So like that one's kind of, anyway.
Our theme, 3 out of our 5 games were like, 30-40 plague bearers, 30-40 bloodletters. Like that, we fought like 3 games of that.
Yeah, on the way down we talked about how we probably won't see very many hordes.
Yeah, we were like 1,000 points. How many models can you get into 1,000 points?
Apparently
a lot.
So yeah, for us it was skinks all the way down. Is that our game form? Yeah.
And we were like, how are we gonna, do we have anything that can even deal with hordes?
Yeah.
Turns out we do.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But skill cards and treasure cards, I thought if you were down to like, all right, we got to pick something to go for, and then you're like, well, it'd be cool to get one of these skill cards, one of these treasure cards. This is something little.
It certainly incentivized the warlord objective, which again was is the main theme of Holy Havoc, is make your warlord awesome, like tell stories with your warlord.
Yeah.
And then the other was the warp fire, which is also the theme of the
warpstone.
Warpstone is the theme of the event. So that made sense too, to kind of incentivize those two.
Yep. Only
to get more.
Only downside possibly being added like one more ingredient to the 47 layer dip that already existed for
Sure.
Yeah.
How many people did you see go, oh God, I didn't use my treasure card, or whatever? Yep. I heard that in a lot of games.
I will say this:
card, it was something else. Yeah.
Like those cards could turn games.
Oh yeah, no joke, man.
Well, and I think there was a swing. Yeah. I mean, there was. I remember you had a card at the end, Davey, that was like on a 4-up, you could disregard 1 mortal wound once in the game.
Right? Yeah,
it was super hot garbage.
Yeah. And then I had like a warp fire bomb that took out 1.5 storm fiends.
Sure. Listen, like Tom, in the span of the game, Tom had these 2 cards. Okay, so Tom had a card that let him like activate his whole boat and all the people that had just piled out of it basically in the hero phase. So it's just like they come out and
free shooting in the hero phase. Boom! Yeah.
Like half his army lands and just explodes in the hero phase and then shoots again in the shooting phase. We take 2 shooting turns in one because this treasure card or whatever it was.
Cunning Ruck frigate, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Surprise!
Nobody sees the Cunning Ruck frigate coming. And so that is a very hard thing to say because that feels like it's on the edge of some pretty inappropriate language. But, and then similarly, so we turned that card in. I think it was like literally we turned that card in.
Yep.
And then the card he got was like a unit can pile in an extra inch once in the game.
I can pile in 4 inches instead of 3 for my shooting army.
What time? Yeah.
No. To Tom's credit, he actually did manage to use this in a real way.
Yeah, and it was valuable. But
come on,
it work. Yeah.
Yeah. The difference was that they were swingy, a bit swingy.
Sure.
Well, and on top of that, to speak about depending on the table you were on, also would affect your army differently, right?
Oh, sure.
We hit the shifting sands in the first game, and that one there's a terrain piece in the middle. You get within 6 inches of it, which everybody accidentally deployed within 6 inches of it because we just weren't thinking of it.
Yeah.
Like it's not its first game or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we're all rolling, and it's destroying half the models on the table.
Yep.
From the
Yep.
outset, right?
Yeah.
So my strongest combat units are at half power,
Yeah.
just from first turn, like before first turn. And so, things like that where it's like, okay, that
The terrain gets to
is-
play.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, and we got, in the case of we had the Oak of Ages, that one didn't do as much to us because we just stayed away from it because we didn't have hordes to contend it. So we're like, you can have
We
it.
were already writing off that objective. So.
That was the one we wrote off. So that didn't do as much to our army, except for cancel out the Warlord objective, like you guys talked about on the show with Steve. So things like that where like, we had easier terrain games, and we had harder terrain games. I'm trying to remember the other one that was. I mean, the cane table was also a bit. I mean, basically, if you did some damage, you got extra attack, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Everyone's playing like everybody gets an extra attack within 18 inches.
Yeah.
One drop of blood.
Yeah.
18-inch +1 attack.
And all of a sudden, 20 storm women are swinging.
Yep.
1 bazillion times.
Yep.
Yes.
So what side
It's
table
too bad.
did you guys play on?
Man, it's too bad hold on. It's too bad I didn't get on that table. I didn't know that. Man, I would have requested that one. I have a 12-man unit of Endrin Riggers.
Oh,
that
yeah.
would have loved that temple.
Yeah.
Well, that's the table we could have moved to, Tom, by the way, for our skirmish game, our reconnaissance game.
that
That
would've
was
been
the old
hilarious.
table, but
Oh.
I don't think it would have been as valuable there.
No.
We played on Shifting Sands, Oak of Ages, Bugman's Brewery. We had our recon was on the Zinch table, like that wackadoo one.
The monolith.
The Shifting Monolith, which was Banana Town, and then the Avatar of Cain, or the Altar of Cain, were all of them. So
didn't get on the Azir table, which we had brought all flying. We brought 2. Like I have almost all flying. My deployment was all flying. Everything I put on the table was all flying, except and then with the KO. So we were hoping for that table.
No, that table is deceptive. I'm just going to be very upfront because all of the islands are like 14 inches.
Yeah.
And so, like, you have to have real flyers, like 16 to 18 or run to even go from ground to top.
So I think that depends on how you play it. Because I think if you're just moving, vertical's free. If you're charging, I think you need to measure.
Well, and so this came up.
Eric's making stuff up.
Like this, like
hey,
your point being
for reference, I talked to Dan of AOS Shorts.
Okay.
Sure.
So,
No, I understand. In normal movement, and this is a key point to that table, which makes it a bit unusual, right? Because in normal movement, you don't pay the vertical movement when flying, right? You get to ignore terrain, and hence you could just kind of move horizontally. And as long as you have the horizontal movement, theoretically, you would just jump to the top rung. But that's contemplating one theoretical place you can be. Like when we were on this table, I think the way most people have played that table, I don't know if Steve has directly ruled on it. You have to pay the vertical movement even with flyers to get up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like the Skyfire guy that we played against, he barely could get his Skyfires had to huddle to the edge.
Jake. That was Jake and Sean.
Skyfire guy.
Sorry, Jake.
He's fine with Skyfire guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like calling Jake Skyfire guy, and especially bringing 400 points of Skyfire to a 500 point recon game.
Oh,
that is a gun to a knife fight for sure.
Yes, indeed.
So I mean, Train was a lot of fun. What were the tables you guys played on?
Yeah, so we played
Oak of
on.
Ages.
Yep, the Oak. We played on our recon game, like we said, was on the Azer table. We played on Vlad's crypty thingamajiggy.
Yeah, wanted something.
Played on the spider table.
Played on
we played on the jungle, the Seraphon table.
So tech.
And then you guys did the city.
And then the city.
And the city, yeah.
Yep.
The Collegiate Arcane. Yep.
Yeah, we played on, as I mentioned during the show, we played on 2 of the maps that have like giant, outrageous central pieces of terrain.
Yeah.
And
I think that was also a big thing about whether a table is going to be brutal to you or not. If that main terrain piece is center or if it's to the side.
Sure.
Oak of Ages to the side, Altar of Cain middle. Well, that was pretty beneficial. Shifting Sands right smack dab in the middle. Monolith wherever you could make it go. Zinch is off to the one side. So I mean, like that. So some of that just whether it's offset or center is gonna determine how it's playing in the game.
Well,
too.
sure, and especially like again your model choice,
Mhm.
right? Like I mentioned during the show, because that that Maw Crush is on this ridiculous Nagash base or whatever, and that dude
Oh,
is
yeah.
just like it raised all sorts of questions. Like, okay, here's a fun thing I hadn't contemplated before this moment, before the moment it came up. How much ground under a model needs to exist for it to land on it?
Right.
Okay, when it's flying.
Yeah.
Like, so like there was this big open set of stairs and a platform, like a plateau, and like if this is my Maw Crusher base, it was like this much of it was covered by the stairs.
Yeah.
Okay, so like this much was off. Is that legal?
Yeah.
Can he hang his butt over the side? Like, is the creature perching on top? Like, I don't, what I mean? Like, I've never contemplated that answer because I've never had that
kind of terrain.
much different terrain to try to put him on.
Right.
Yeah. I think, we had the same with the cane table, in that I could put the birds up around. I had some fell ravens.
Yeah, I didn't understand how you're doing it. Like your birds were like sticking out 90 degrees. I was like, how is that still hanging on there? Like,
well, I just set them wherever they could rest. But then the only way Steve's rats could attack them is from the stairway. So he had a rule for that one where, like, to act as if they're going up the stairs to attack them, kind of thing. So there's some of that. And I think, some of those tables trying to figure out, how do you get at that? At this event.
Oh yeah, it wasn't a big deal. I'm just like, it raised interesting questions that I had never contemplated.
Well, and I think that's interesting. What I think I love about the idea of 3-dimensional terrain and even multi-levels and that sort of thing is the ability to create choke points and to create like spaces. At the same time, I don't think you want to create a scenario where I can just sit up on a thing and there's no way you can get at me, like where regular terrain becomes a vortex, right? Because you just can't charge me, you can't get up there, you can't stand your models, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I think there's a balance there. But yeah, so terrain on the tables were fantastic. A lot of fun to play on. And I think also sets the tone. Like, there were some fantastic players who racked up, like multiple games where they got all 4 objectives. So that there's still like tactical play. There's still like knowing what you can do versus what the opponent can do.
Oh, sure.
Etc. At the same time, there's a lot more luck going on.
Yeah, you just can't control some factors in this thing. Yeah.
And then your opponent, like, turns out we did all right against hordes.
Yeah.
And turns out we got hordes multiple times. So we were able to figure out the key to that.
But did you get a block of 30 executioners?
No. So we got a lot of low levels. So Night Haunt did nothing to Alex's Night Haunt. He's in here in the chat, I think.
We straight bounced off that. Like, it was embarrassing. I remember it hit the table and I was like, like that doesn't seem like that much stuff. We can deal with that. And then like at the end of the game, there was exactly that much stuff still left on the table. I was like,
Shifting Sands killed a couple of things.
Exactly. Thanks, Shifting Sands.
But turns out engine riggers and Vargeist can chew through Stormcast like nobody's business.
Can't imagine.
Would go even better if I remembered all my rules.
but Stormcast heroes, not so much. So I mean, there's a lot of that I was trying to think was the one that we fought. So our third game against Greg and Sean.
Yeah.
They brought a lot. So there's a lot of Plague Bearers.
Yeah.
Light Kings.
Yeah.
Which we'd faced a little bit in a previous game.
Yeah.
And then like all the things in Scryer that just does mortal wounds by pointing at you.
All the good things.
Yeah. And I looked at those and I asked Davey to save me. Yeah. I asked him to shoot it from long distance with fire and make it die.
Yeah.
And so he laughed at me. And so then I had to deal with it. And we did an all right job.
Yep.
The vampires and the birds and the flying orcs with fezzes did an all right job of taking care of that stuff. But I'm trying to think of.
Well, I have a question for you. So here's my question. Okay. So each of these tables that are there is clearly attempting to communicate some narrative about the world that table occupies, right?
Yep.
Do you feel like on the ones you played on, the natural sort of narrative, the story of the table came through by virtue of the rules that were there? Is there any table you felt like didn't really feel like what it was purporting to be, or you felt like the narrative was, not as clear or clean as what it could otherwise be?
Let's see. Shifting Sands, absolutely. I mean, it was over what, like, the table was like, we will tell you what the narrative is. You guys shut up. We're gonna tell you.
I feel like that Shifting Sands should have been itself shifting
Yeah.
and just like rotor, like what's the robot
like,
vacuum?
Yeah, like
Oh,
the Roomba.
The Roomba, like
Yeah.
just scouring that table for models, like chucking them.
I think we didn't really test because we were away from the Oak of Ages a little bit, and then the rest of that table was like mostly deadly terrain. I thought the rest of the table could have synergized a little bit better with the, or like carried that oak theme. It was like if you're by the oak, then you have this oak thing going on. Otherwise, it's like a whole bunch of deadly. I don't know.
Right.
But
the Tzeentch one did really cool because it's got pillars that are going to hurt you and pillars that are going to heal you.
Yeah.
I think we played just our skirmish on that, so we didn't take as much advantage of that because we didn't have as many models on the table. But that had a really cool theme to it that felt, and then it had a place where it would teleport you somewhere on the board, or do some damage to you and teleport you. So I mean, that one was pretty cool.
I'd say they're all pretty represented. Some did a better job than others. I would say. So of our 5, bottom of the list for conveying itself was maybe the oak, but who knows? Maybe that's because we were hiding from it. And then top, I thought the Shifting Monolith was
certainly made itself known.
Yeah,
I did not get to play on that one. I have never played on the Shifting Monolith.
It's pretty.
Well, I wanted to play on it last year with my ogres that are based in the Endless Desert, so that would have been cool. But yeah, making those matchups.
Sure, I think the ones that come through the strongest to me are the ones that have, what do I want to say, like a really alien but unified theme.
Yeah,
because like the ones you mentioned, so like the Tzeentch table, table, like that table, everything about it says Tzeentch and is weird and magical in the way it affects, right? No part of it has to like be adhere to like a normal world that you're then trying to square into the story. So like the Tzeentch one is like that. The Shifting Sands one I think is probably like that because everything has that Desert Tomb Kings vibe. The Azir table, right, where you've got like where you have the floating islands, where you have the realm gates everywhere, where you're calling down lightning from Sigmar's chapel,
right?
Whereas like so the Sotek one, the Lizardman one, the Seraphon one, like I love that table. Looks cool, but basically it's a snake that teleports people and a waterfall that you gotta magically get to the top of. Right. And that's kind of what you said. Like, other than that, there's like some deadly forests.
Yeah.
And, I get it. I get why they're deadly. Right. Because it's the jungles and
snakes are biting.
The thing. And that's cool. Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not as holistic.
Sure.
Right. As the Tzeentch table, where like everything piles into that same narrative.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of that might be too what we've talked about in the lore, what we've talked about with army development, is that some of those tables have 1 foot in AOS and 1 foot in 8th.
Sure.
And so being able to fully realize them, trying to keep what made them special, where they're rooted in, but then separating that and moving them into a little more crazy town, right? I think that's hard to do. I think, and not to mention that, I mean, there were 15 boards at the event.
Yeah, 15. Yeah.
And he's got, that's not even all his boards. So trying to keep all the boards up, what are you going to spend your time on this year, rewriting rules or, that sort of thing. So I think, I mean, even last year, there was a lot of rules where you could attack the board, right?
Yeah,
you could fight against the board. And so a lot of these are rewritten. And so I'm sure that there's some of that where it just, more time and we'll get some of these things just turned to 11.
Yeah, I mean, credit where credit's due. I think one of the most flat, boring boards previously was the Empire Human Town one.
Yeah.
Like it was
a town.
It was just sort of a town.
What does a town do?
Yeah, there was kind of like the arcane that was what the heck is it called? The Arcane Manse or whatever, the center, Skullbane Manse, and then the Dreadstone Blight, and they were both kind of whatever they were. And then there was just like some other buildings that looked like cool Empire buildings, right?
Yeah.
They didn't do like a whole lot. They did a little something.
Yeah.
Whereas this year, I think he stepped up that board a lot because every one of the buildings was a buff. Okay, so instead, like, it's a really cool table to play on because instead of being the table killing you, the table empowers you all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's like where you place your figs to go run and get their buff and fight in the range of that building becomes a much different experience. But the building is generally the building's buffed everybody. So like if you're fighting there, your enemies are fighting there too. So like I thought that was actually, that board is a great example of like it's still very old world.
Yeah.
But still really communicated its story because it did, like, all the buildings were appropriate. The Temple of Sigmar, increased bravery and healed and blah 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 blah. Right.
So it sounds like that one made its jump this year into AOS.
Yeah,
which is really cool. And hopefully more of them do that. I think. I mean, the Oak of Ages. There's so much Sylvaneth stuff. I mean, you could have like Dreich's Hive, like one of our hives on the board. Doing some business on the other side. You wanted to avoid the oak? Here's some Flutter Furies up your pants. So yeah, I mean, I think there's always room for growing, and obviously he's doing that. But I think that's a really good one. Is it some of the tables have more character and stand out than others.
And again, we're talking about like the difference between a pretty good to very good table and an amazing table. Like
we're talking about the difference between like an 8 and a 10.
Right,
here,
exactly.
Right?
Well, and I mean, all of them look better than your average, weekly or monthly game.
They look better than any table I've ever seen outside of Warhammer World, and are certainly competitive with their best tables. So let's be honest here.
So just on that. So I mean, they're always beautiful. I mean, in all the painted armies, all on the table with amazing terrain. Every single game was picturesque, and there was no low standard. So that was fantastic. I want to do a quick shout out to all of the people we played against. So first game,
shout out.
We got to play against Alex from is it Northern Michigan? I think he's here in the chat.
And Alt Brendan.
So I got to play against David Whitek, who was also our roommate for the weekend. So shout out to David for hanging with us and that first game. Woo! And then Brendan for once joining Alex as a partner. And then we played against Joe and Nick. Is that right?
Yeah.
The beer for the beer gods. Crew.
Yeah.
We got to play against Sean and Greg, as we mentioned. They were bringing some Scryer and some Nerdle.
Yeah.
We got to play against
Travis and Dan.
Travis and Dan from the Lords of War.
Yeah.
They play out of Minneapolis, and that was a lot of fun.
And then some nobody.
Yeah, some
douche. No, we played against Steve Herner in the last round.
Steve and John.
Yeah.
And had a good game getting to them. And it's funny story there because to the effect of the spider scenario we talked about before, Steve does not like his toys getting wrecked.
Yeah.
And so he had a Vermin Lord who was very much afraid of my Warlord coming up and smack
as he should be.
And so he had 4 stones on this one Vermin Lord who he intentionally ran into a forest, dangerous terrain twice.
In dangerous terrain and killed him.
Killed him on a one up just to keep
to deny us the crystals.
Deny us the crystals.
Sure, deny you the extra kill.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was pretty funny. But especially thank you guys for all your votes for your best player votes and that sort of thing. So we had a hard time picking between all of them. So it was a shame we only got 3 opportunities to do that. Because we just had a lot of good players. So I want our opportunity to shout out and remember everybody's name.
We were just fried from that week.
I know, but it's still on record.
Shut up. It is totally on record. That is a true statement.
And I have no sheet here in front of me, by the way. I'm just putting it out there.
I will confirm that.
Yep. He uses Warhammer Paint app to.
We're just terrible people. I'll just own that. We're just terrible people.
Yeah. So we also ran, a similar style of partnered lists that you guys did.
Yeah,
Obviously, we both had KO on our team, and I think the Soul Blight plays very much like the Iron Jaws did for you. You've got. I was up in the face with the Soul Blight, and he was in the back shooting, and and
It works real well, doesn't it?
It was pretty rad.
yeah,
Yep.
especially did a lot of like concentrating on one side, one flank, trying to take out one of the two before finishing off the other kind of thing. Sometimes because of the terrain, but also sometimes because of the threat. Some things were just a bigger threat than others, and so like the scryer stuff, way more of a threat than the slow moving Nurgle stuff.
Yeah, sure.
So take apart the scryer first, and then deal with the Nurgle stuff.
Now, are you
later.
the one who ran into the Arch Warlock and ran afoul of him?
I actually, so what happened with that one, I actually didn't see the Arch Warlock or know he was there until I had all my stuff right up there.
Yeah.
And my Warlord was making choice. I was making my choice over what to hit. And I was like, wait, is that an Arch Warlock? And instead of attacking his Warlord, I was like, I'm killing that. So I ended up killing a Warp Fire team and the Warlock with my Warlord.
Yeah, thank God for 2-inch reach on the Sword of Havoc, because that saved us from some bad pylons a couple times.
Yeah, so that was one where I took out the Storm Fiends I took him down to 1 Storm Fiend out of 3 in the first round of combat with the Warlord, with Vargeist and a bomb. So they would have done more hurt if I didn't have that treasure card,
Yeah, sure.
So it wasn't all that army, but that was probably the scariest one. What the thing about Soulblight, and I think you probably experienced some of that with the pigs and the Maw Crusher, but not so much with the brutes. Everything in Soulblight moves fast. My slowest model is base 12 inches, boosted to 14 with the Soul Flight or the Swift Death rule, and which just meant I got to decide where they were.
Right. Well, and you were playing like the hyper speed because
super speed. Yep.
You had like you were bringing out the power of the bats.
Absolutely.
As we've discussed, I'm a big proponent of the bat swarms.
Yeah. And I hadn't. So one of the other things I'll say is Davey and I didn't play our armies much before the event.
I had literally never played Overlords in a game bigger than a skirmish.
It was skirmish, yeah. And I'd played some Soulblight. I played like one game about a month and a half ago, with just gray models and stuff. And that was with the Zombie Dragon's command ability. So not playing with that. So we were going pretty cold, but like I said, we just were churning over the scenarios and all that kind of stuff that we needed to do. And after and one of the things I was most worried about was like, because I was committed to this all flying, so I didn't bring any Blood Knights, and I'd already decided that. And a couple days beforehand, I was like, well, should I bring them? I mean, am I putting myself too much of a crutch or a handicap by not bringing them?
I'd like to say the answer is yes, but clearly I'm wrong. So
well,
there you go.
And that's the thing is with the and so I had the Fellbats and I had the Bat Swarms, and really interchangeably, but a little bit different. I mean, the Fellbats take up more board space, so you could do board control a little bit. So a unit of 6 of those is taking up a foot of space, and then the Bat Swarms for Neg 1 for shooting. We really didn't face a lot of shooting. Which was also another thing that we didn't have to deal with. KO did not have to deal with that.
You didn't have any counter battery shooting.
No. And our actually we were worried about facing you guys because I thought Tom would be running Zilfin, which meant
I was
rerolling ones against and rerolling ones against all flying, and we had all flying. Like everything in our army was flying. So it was like take your you just be your rule that you would just have throughout the whole game.
Get to reroll hit and wounds against your entire army.
Yep,
exactly.
So we had that benefit. But what that meant was that if I wanted them, it's not that I wanted them in combat to kill things, but I could easily get the Vargeist into one part of a unit and get a Fellbat unit into the complete opposite side and just trap them and tag them. And so the Vargeist were just not getting as much damage back. So, that in and of itself made the army, twice as effective than if I didn't have them. If I just had one more unit of Vargeist, I don't think they would have been as effective, because one, that unit's probably getting wiped out if they're all in combat, whereas a unit of bats doesn't die easy, so
power of the bats.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of things I learned about Soulblight that day. One of it is how sweet the love of a vampire really is, and the other is that they can hit pretty hard. They can tank pretty well. Like the Zombie Dragon pretty much did more tanking than he did killing. But But when he needed to kill something, he did.
Nice. So let's talk about that warlord, because you obviously the warlord this time is different, right? Than our previous sort of go round last year with the warlord. In that this year, your warlord basically, first of all, we each had one. It wasn't just one thing.
So last year we had one warlord between the two of us,
right?
And I would characterize him as being pretty ancillary piece. Had some objectives, but
yeah, I mean, as I think you and I kind of discussed this last night. It's sort of like, it's not that he was that much less powerful; it's that he was less powerful vis-a-vis everything else that was on the board.
Right. So we had Glotkin, we had Archeon,
right.
We had Greater Demons, we had lots of things on the table that were overshadowing him by far.
Yeah. And plus he tended to be ranged, so he tended to be more like a spike assassin, right? Where he would just like pick that target, that guy's dead.
Yeah.
Next, you know what I mean? Whereas now he could like jump forward and just jump into units and be like, whoa, and just like kill 10 retributors in the last game,
Yeah.
So here's what I want to talk about. I now, we kind of hit on the rules of the warlord thing, and I think that there's probably plenty to unpack there, but that's all fine. That's just an engineering problem to me.
And if only you had somebody to help him work those out.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
Womp womp womp.
Just kidding. No, I mean, but
I purposely clicked on Tom when he said that because he made that noise, so I find that to be incredibly
no,
funny.
I mean, what you're getting is it made the Slayer, the combat version of had a lot of enticing.
Well,
things.
it
So
needed to be counterbalanced from last year, and so the question is how far do you go?
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I'm sure like 35 people picked the Slayer path this time instead of the last time it was 19 out of 20 went the range path. Whatever. My point is not to say I don't really have any big issue with that. Like, those things take time to work out and get exactly right. That's just the challenge of numbers. Here's my question, because here's where I feel the opportunity really rests with the warlord. Okay, which is, and you said it at the beginning, this event is really about the warlord. That's what sets it apart, right? Like, that's the sort of the point of this thing that we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like the story, I had a backstory to my warlord, and it was good that he could get affected by the rules of sort of my faction. So like yours flew from game one, for example, the Soulblight guy, because he absorbed your Soulblight rules.
Mine could climb on board a sky ship,
right.
like those are good things to pull them into your army.
Yeah. So that was all good. I like that. I do not want to see that go away. That should absolutely stay. Critical to me. That being said, I felt like by game 3-ish, especially, let's say 3, 4, 5, basically the rules on the sheet overwhelmed any individual aspect of that warlord. And like, the fact that everybody went Slayer and whatever, just meant that sort of it was puzzle pieces we all had identical versions of, and there wasn't that much difference to them. So like, we had all this different narrative and different character to our warlords. Like, theoretically, my guy was a mega boss.
Yeah.
And your guy was a vampire. And Davey, your guy was a some kind of dwarven,
Gunderson wannabe.
Yeah, exactly. Some kind of skyport captain, an admiral of sorts. And yet, my guess is they all pretty much had the same rules. Like, if you look at their sheets, really, when it comes down to it, 95% of their effectiveness was identical.
I actually went 50-50 with mine. I think I was probably one of the exceptions. I took 2 from each path.
Wow.
But that's because I was Beric Mornar. My guy could point at a thing and say, I'm going to re-roll to hit shooting against that thing.
Gotcha.
So he hung back a little more to buff his guys. So I went for the extra wounds for tankiness. That's on the Slayer path. Went for the rend shooting. Went for the rend on Slayer. Then went for the damage on shooting. And it worked out. It worked out pretty well. He couldn't go through stuff as fast, but he could reach out and touch him. So hybrid all the way. But I don't think there were probably too many like full hunters. And I think you're right. On paper, Slayer looked like the better path.
I think in most cases, but my bigger concern is like, I just didn't feel like, I feel like we still have a little ways to go with recognizing the narrative of the warlord, right?
Yep, sure.
Like, to me, this tournament is about their story, right? That's what this is. Like, your army is almost incidental In that, I don't mean they're not important to playing the games. They're, of course, how we play the game. That's
Right.
right. It's expressed. But it's the story of the warlord from his rise to power.
Right.
Right. Or to madness or to whatever, like as he accumulates his abilities. It's a classic coming of age tale. Story as old as time. A warlord, gets at the head of a massive tribe of orcs and eats too much warpstone and goes insane. It's how many times have we seen that in the movies?
Yeah,
Hollywood come up with something new. All right, that's all I'm saying. So I feel like those narrative elements need to be more expressed, but I'm not sure if I'm alone. Like, do you guys, what do you both think? Am I off on my own here, or do you feel like we could go some more steps and kind of build that guy out a little more individualistic somehow?
I think there's probably room for that. I'm not going to say that I know how to do that, but yeah, I think the challenge every narrative event runs into is that unlike a competitive tournament where we have years and years and years of examples of 98% of the events in a given year are match play,
right? They run
analogs or whatever,
and are intentionally stripped of those uniquenesses to some extent.
Yeah, and they'll make their own. Alamo would have its own twist and all these sort of things, but there's less existing examples for narrative events, and so they're operating a lot more unknown territory. And when you talk about a writing, a narrative, you're telling a story, right? How do you do that when you have what were there? How many teams? 20 teams?
20 teams, yeah. 40
20
players.
teams, 40 players.
40 warlords.
That's quite a collaborative narrative to try to figure out how to tell while creating a framework for this. So like that is way, way more challenging than coming up with a scenario that's balanced, in my opinion.
Sure.
So that's a tough thing to do. And so did they do a good job? Absolutely. Is there more room to make it even more narrative? Absolutely. So.
Yeah, again, as with everything, like, to be very clear, this whole tournament bangs at like its low performance is like a 7 out of 10, right? So we're not saying like, oh
yeah,
warlords. No, that's not at all what I'm saying.
No,
one of the things I thought about was like it would be interesting to me if there was maybe some choice point in there beyond just path itself.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like actual ways that you could customize or pick something specific, maybe even a little more fluffy. Maybe one of the upgrades, instead of being like straight numerical, would be like a suite of sort of special-ish abilities that were longer.
Yeah.
Think of more like the more unique abilities people have, rather than just like you could reroll ones to hit.
Yeah. What about pulling? Because there's already Path to Glory, right? There's a whole set of upgrade tables there.
Yeah.
And those are unique. There's some overlap between them, but the names of them are unique to the given army. You might be able to harness that somewhat.
Well, I think, one of the things that we got out of this is there's kind of two paths, but every warlord was tanky.
Right.
So tanky is another attribute that could be unique to a path, right?
Yep.
Every, rend and damage are two different things where you could have somebody who's low damage, high rend who can hit anybody, but it's, like an assassin or, a fencer who's super lithe and can get through any armor.
Yeah, it's that Vermin Lord Warp Stiletto, right?
Yep,
Where it's just like he doesn't have the most number of attacks, but it's all at -3 rend. He's just like pop, pop, pop right through that armor.
So a whole bunch of little attacks, and then you've got somebody who, maybe low rend, but does 6 damage. Like you got a low probability of getting through. Once you do, you squish whatever it is that you hit.
The big club theory.
Yep. So there's just I think there's a lot of variables where you could send people down paths where they're rewarded for continuing down the paths. So like, hey, you could get to Rend 3, or you could change your path. And once you change your path, you can't, like, there's a path of Rend, right? And so maybe the longer you stay on the path, the better your Rend is.
Well, can I trot out a crazy idea?
Sure, you can.
All right, I'm going to trot out a crazy idea for you here. Here we go. Dynamically unlockable special abilities happening at something like tier 3 or 4 that have prerequisites. The numerical things act as prerequisites and represent some previous choice points made. Maybe you blow out some of the previous choice points. But then these are larger, more complicated special abilities that are locked out from certain things. Let me be very clear here. I'll give you some real examples, okay? Here we go.
Do it.
All right, take the skink rule, for example. I'll call it the skink rule, but it could easily be called like, whatever.
Thunderer roll.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
exactly.
The Grunstock Thunderer rule, yeah. So like when you're selected in combat, you can, instead of fighting, you can be like, nope, we're out, and just like you run away, right? Which I think is a super cool, fluffy, and actually quite powerful rule. I think it bangs on all cylinders. That could be a choice point, but it could be like Warlord requirement movement 10 inches.
Yeah.
And the Warlord's base movement could be 8, right? So you had to make a choice at some previous point in the advancement to go for speed over offensive power or durability or whatever.
Yep.
And if you made that choice, it opens up this other special ability that nobody else, that other people wouldn't have access to, right? So you can't just like be like, oh, well, this is the best thing, I'm going to pick that thing. Now, I understand the nature of like daisy chaining special abilities, and it doesn't necessarily answer it, but I think it does help you build a more unique thing, because people might want they might want their Warlord to fill a certain role in their force. And so like, then there could be tons of examples of this, right? Like you could have one that's like where he just becomes like a healing monstrosity, right? Where he's like Wolverine, he's healing like D6 plus 2 wounds a turn or something. But like the requirement is he either has to have some other defensive choice you made or some other toughness choice you made, and can't have taken any of the offensive things.
Yeah.
So he's like a meat bag. Now, one of the incidental things to this is the Warlord objective would need to change.
You need to design it accordingly.
Yeah, because like a lot of the Warlord objectives right now are just like do the most damage to insert thing here. And you can't keep that if you're going to have lots of different types of Warlords.
You could have your own like ability that you get off. Like if you do certain kind of things, so like per phase. Now, I want to caveat too is like I loved the Warlord this year.
Yeah.
In our armies by turn 5 or game 5, he was worth all of the rest of the army.
He's a 1,000-point hero.
He was
easily.
He was amazing.
He would spike like a football any other established character.
And I love that, because in the first game he underperformed what I was hoping he would, right? As he should, right? He should earn that. He should become what he's meant to be, or she. And he did that. Like, so you guys did a fantastic job of designing heroes that made a difference in the game and felt like I love my hero now, right? I liked him when I made him, but now he has story, and I really dig it. So in that regard, like mission accomplished, making him the center of the event. And then what I would say is what we've got now is we're just inspired off of that. Right.
Absolutely.
It just gets our juices flowing, and that desire to take him and micromanage him a little bit and make that model a little more unique than everyone else's. Right. That's the model that some people spent the most time on, kind of converting and changing it and making their own. If they're not a converting type of player, this was where they got to experiment with that, etc. And we got to see some of the craziest, funnest, models in the armies. So how do we obtain the most unique story that we can?
Yeah, I want to touch on something that Will said real quick, because he's talking about like don't necessarily make the general better. He had made the comment of maybe give them a better army to lead, of like the army upgrades. So to me, Holy Havoc and its premise is that it is the story of the Warlord, and so that's why that guy improved. And you generally have to be careful with upgrading units and stuff like that, because it can go wonky real fast. Because people can take already sort of overpowered units and really shoot them off into the stratosphere or something like that, or whatever. Or it could just be strange or hard. Somebody might not have the right units to be able to apply those bonuses to. But that being said, I like the idea. I think you just do it through the Warlord. One of the things I had talked about with Tom was, what if there was like a path of the commander?
Absolutely. Yep.
Right.
Totally.
Where it's about him buffing. He himself just remains more of like a military commander. He's a tactical strategist, and he can enhance your units just by his presence around them more. He's not like a melee killer himself.
No, but he can turn. Maybe he goes from being able to buff one unit a little bit to being able to buff more units a little bit, or fewer units a lot. Like he has a stackable ability he can give to one unit or multiple units or something like that, right? I mean, and again, that's one more hero type archetype that we could unlock for sure.
Yeah.
You know, your more backfield buffer, and that's to to the point of make the army better. Like that's how you make your army better. Like that's the mechanic in AOS for making your army better is that hero that can buff, again, like let somebody else do a command ability, right? That would have been huge in this showdown because everyone else's command ability that you're used to using was locked. Right. If I could unlock one of my command abilities from another hero, that would totally change the game.
Yeah.
And so that would be really interesting to work up too.
Yeah, I know for me, I love the Warlord. I love the decisions that are being made there. I wish there were more decisions in the course of the actual game. And like in between games. I wish there was some choice points that were being made.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a double-edged sword because of the being able to streamline it, being able to make it something that you can pick easily and quickly, but have an impact. I think during the game, probably, I mean, there's already a ton of choices. But
right, I'm not talking about during the game. I'm talking about like we just ended up on our matchups like you would a standard matched play.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that I wish that those matchups were not necessarily because of who is winning, or who is winning the most games. I wish that some of those decisions were driven by other factors. That map that we were trying to do, I wish that, we chose to go to certain areas, i.e. certain tables, because that's what the map needed us to do.
Yeah. So like the nature of and we already touched on that. Like, let's be honest, there was a toe in that water, right? Because the idea that your alliances, the grand alliances, didn't fight each other. Right?
Well, and I think you're looking for there, I mean, like these boards, beautiful, amazing, random, right? The boards themselves, in order to feed his creativity, are random. They don't fit side by side or in.
There's not one broad overarching theme beyond the more
right.
But I could see in this. I think again, we have room for varieties of events. I've imagined a scenario in which, and I think the Rise of Empire event I think he does this. Sean does this, where every board or table in the room is in its position in relationship to all the other boards.
Yes,
and that they make up one battlefield, and so where a success in one area might determine where you go from a board standpoint. So I think that's something, a mechanic like that, and set up like that, maybe what you're looking for.
Again, to call back, they did that at the PACA. Like they had the map.
Yep.
And each table was where it existed on the map, so you knew if you were on that side of the board, or that side of the room, you'd push deep into the enemy territory. So that was kind of cool. You could look around and see where visually the fights were actually happening.
Yeah.
That being said, there's no reason you couldn't, you'd have to adapt to that idea, but there's no reason you couldn't be running things like as a fight through the all gates, and you're trying to get certain critical points throughout the mortal realms.
Yep.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, you're right. You abstracted a little bit, and everything's next to each other when you got realm gates.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like that's a great call, Vince. Like, what if the whole thing was, fight for all gates, and then basically like all gates maybe as a single table or something.
Yeah, like Yazir could be like the top table or a critical table to the narrative or something like that.
Yeah.
That's deciding other things where things are going.
Yeah, and then you could do something to the effect of and this would be tough on Vargas. Sorry, buddy.
we're just making Vargas's life harder here.
And it's so each table, there's control of a table, right? And you as a faction need to get on that table and dominate it, right? So if you got Order versus Chaos and Order wins, then Order has a control of that table.
Yeah,
and then you put in the other two factions onto that table next round, etc.
So can I tease out something else possibly?
Yeah, go for it, man.
So what if? Let me just throw a what if out. What if instead of teams of 2, we had teams of 4? Okay.
Okay.
And everybody brought 2,500 points.
Oh my god.
Okay. Hold on. Wait.
Blowing my mind so far. Okay.
And
we have
and
10,000
some
point courses.
so no, hold on. Some tables are 500 or one. Some tables are 1,000-point single games.
Okay,
Some tables are 2,000-point single games,
sure.
and some tables are like multiplayer 1,000-point per player tables. So, like, if your team has taken an objective, they can stay and defend the table. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah,
you
I
know,
think
and
what
so
you're- yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
I won't get
And
into
then,
it.
and then, so basically, based on where you want to go and what you want to accomplish, you can send certain players to do certain things, and others to defend and to stay.
Similar, yeah. Paka again, to call it back. Paka tried something similar like that. The trick was making sure everybody was playing a game.
Yeah.
There's some, because you could leave somebody back and then it doesn't get attacked, and then that guy's just kind of hanging out. So they had a workaround where they'd say, okay, well, you'll just push forward onto this table to bring it, get you playing and bring it up.
So between rounds, what did they do? Didn't they? You would decide on your own where you were moving from the spot on the map where you were.
Yes.
And whoever moved into that same square with you is who you'd fight.
Yeah.
And if you had multiple people, then it would be a 3-way battle, right? Or a 4-way battle, or
Yep.
whatever it was. And so you're really determining where you're playing and how many people you're playing.
Yeah.
But not
based on where you just
knowing who you're going to encounter.
No, yeah, and somebody could be able to slip through there.
You could intuit like, okay, here are the people who might move to this spot, and then go off of that. But
I don't know. I just think that would be a much more kind of narratively interesting, compelling, and it would move us back out of this match play mindset.
Well,
sure.
And I think you hit on two things, and we've talked about this since narrative came out last year's General's Handbook, is that there's signals, there's different parts of narrative that you can dive into. I love that Havoc's focused on the warlord. I think there's absolutely a room where you tell that hero story, and to some extent, it's a private story, right? I'm not necessarily learning a ton about Vince's warlord through that event. However, there could be another story where it's about your armies, like the story of the realm and what happens to that realm and who dominates it, right? In the Paka event, that was more a story about the place.
Yeah.
And so I think you again, you incentivize, you write the pack, the rule, the scenarios around what story you want to tell. And it's hard to tell all those stories.
Yeah.
Both your warlord and the realm and your army and factions or whatever it is. So you've sort of got.
I think this is the holy event, the third,
right?
Like,
maybe,
seriously,
maybe.
I'm not trying to be.
Yeah.
Like I'm not. My point is just like I think these events can have different personalities to them, right? And that's okay. Like I know that some people like a certain level of competitive, and some people like a certain level of narrative, and how exactly that all gets together, soup and stuff in the stew. And I think Herner had mentioned the idea of a third event where he really wanted to lean hard into the narrative, and I think that kind of stuff you have to build those expectations from the ground up, right?
Yes.
Stuff like that.
And you got to massage the community who's playing that too, to be able to get to that place, right?
Yes.
If we'd, I mean, Rod did this successfully last year, throwing like a ton of stuff at the players, and they rolled with it, and they came back for more. And there's more people attended Raw this year than last year, but that's a jump for some people.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's a different play style. People have to. It's going to be different for them to explore. But let me say this: I think the holy events, as they are getting people into that mindset. Right? It's taking like you can't just push people into the deep end, right? Like my point being, like in anything, if you want to like really be a student of film, you don't like start out watching like 1950s Italian or French like cinema verite or whatever the heck it is, like really high end like artistic, thoughtful, slow movies. That's
watch Beetlejuice,
Last Action Hero.
Just seriously, just go watch like Die Hard. Like that's a good way to start. It's a great movie that's also entertaining, and then develop your love over time, right? You get deeper into the art or whatever. And like I think that's the same thing. Like there's been a lot of people who have been brought along into their first steps into narrative gaming who might not have ever thought about it through the holy events. So I think there is the opportunity to build that.
And to Davey's point too, I mean, Steve and Jason and that team are learning as well. Like what is a narrative event? I mean, all of us that have tried to run any event. So I mean, like Coalescence, we were trying to figure out like what are the signals, what's the minimum kind of flavor or salt or pepper or whatever that we put it into it that's easily accessible but still pulls you out of match play and puts you into a story. And for that one, it was a lot of, well, you're picking a realm, a place you are in relation to everybody else. You're playing on, these. We did have, every scene moved you closer to a middle point, right? So we had a kind of your space was the story, and then the scoring system had nothing, was just took you to the teams again. Like you're playing as your team's winning, you're not winning, your team is, so just what are the few things? And so we're all kind of learning what stuff works and what doesn't. And so to Davey's point, Steve is probably now going, okay, I experimented here. Like that skirmish game was experimentation, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, the map was
Great.
experimentation. Some and the the Havoc, the cards were experimentation. Like he had a bunch of stuff in there that was brand new.
Oh, he's pushing the envelope, no doubt.
Yep. And so now next year it's all that's gonna be better, and there's gonna be new stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, there was a lot of really good narrative signals here, a lot of fun to play, and also, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, in my head, like so to just mention, we got best overall. We weren't the best players on the table. What was more important was, just the hobby, in addition to the playing on the table and cool stuff, but the hobby, and then just people, right? Just playing fun games. And and that's Steve's goal, is to just have the funnest games possible. So
there you go.
Do you want to talk a little bit about some hobby, about some painting before we?
Oh, what are we talking about with hobby and painting before we go?
Well, you guys,
Sweeping the painting
sweeping
awards.
all the painting awards, making it so nobody else gets any.
Yeah,
rude,
kind of greedy.
Sure. No, that's fair. I mean, look, I mean, I was overjoyed and thrilled, as I said. Like, I didn't realize you told me the votes. I didn't realize what the votes were.
Yeah. So you guys got 14 votes for fan favorite, which was overwhelming.
Wow.
So that was on the score sheet. We got 2 votes as second place, and then there was a few other 1 votes. And so
I had no idea.
Yeah, it was overwhelming. I mean, and it was fantastic though. But you guys created a standard, I think, or what you guys created was certainly up the game from last year. Although, I mean, like, I remember last year, I stabbed myself. Butcher and they had a big, like, floating board,
nice board,
which was cool. But it was a display as opposed to a setting, and you guys created a setting. And I mean, we last year created. I mean, I felt like our desert board was a setting, and this one was a setting as well. But there's a scale to it too. Like, you guys created a scale to it, and having everything together, tied together, fighting together. That's one thing I missed in the pack of whether or not we were displaying together or apart, because it said that you're judged separately. So I was like, oh, then I don't need to worry about fitting you on my board. I was like, thank God I don't have that.
Throw my terrain into the ice maker.
I don't have those boats dragging me down. No. But so, like, just where are we going to go next year? And I think that's you've upped the game, and I hope for more than just me, right? And Davey, if you'll still have me next year. Davey, would you be my partner for Holy Havoc 2018?
Very awkward.
Okay.
Especially since you couldn't move far away.
So, like, I mean, it means that hopefully next year we're going to have our display boards are going to be telling even more stories that we can get into, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll be very honest. Like, yeah, you bet it. I've got my eyes set on that same sweep again next year. Like, that's absolutely not that I ever expect that. That's you cannot.
Oh no.
And that's silly to do so. But I'm going to shoot for it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to set my personal.
And this was a conversation that we had that when we left last year, was that we felt like we were competing in a number of different spaces, but we actually didn't take any trophies home last year. We ended up placing second in 3 separate categories. And so we wanted to make sure that we upped our game in a sense, so that we were serious competitors in all those categories. And it paid a pretty big dividend. We're super honored by the community.
Yeah, beyond blown away. I mean, honestly, seriously, like not
Yeah.
joking.
Yeah.
There's no expectation having that. There were wonderfully beautiful armies there, wonderfully beautiful creations. Everybody.
Yep.
It's obvious that it's a hobby-focused tournament, and people put a lot of time and love into their stuff. Period.
Yep.
And what I will say though, if you want me to talk about this for a second, because I already did mention this and I mentioned it. Tom knows what I'm planning, but I'm not going to say what it is.
Oh my God, it's terrible. I don't want to do that army.
Yeah, you do, buddy. If a particular army comes out next year, then I already know what the display board looks like. I already have the whole display board planned. I know how I'm going to build it.
We can't put that on your channel without getting flagged, right?
I'm aware. That's fine. I'm not going to say we're not saying anything else about it.
You heard it here first. Vince Venturella, Fishman 2018, all in.
Exactly. There you go. That's right. When the Fishmen come, I'm going to do an entire 2x2 resin pour of the underwater scene, and then I'll have all my minis inside, and then I'll get to the tournament and be like,
you won't actually be able to
wait
a
minute. Oh,
This was such a good idea before.
How do I get them out to play?
Get me a chisel, goddammit. Yeah.
Can we do the paint judging first?
Yeah, exactly. All right, time to crack them out. So, but no, I already know what the whole board is. I have the whole thing planned out. I, who hates display boards, this idea struck me like a lightning bolt, man. And let me tell you what, it's gonna be amazing.
And to be clear, he just wants to beat Tom.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's motivation there, but that's only if a very particular army comes out. So it's entirely possible that is not what happens next year. We'll see. And then I'll go. If that's the case, I'll just continue hating display boards as always.
No, and I think that's the thing, though. Is I mean, even the display board Grinch is getting inspired and excited because of being able to bring that level of hobby to this event. I mean, it's just awesome. So I mean, I wasn't the only one shaming Davy's board. So just
to be clear, by shaming he means he's gonna throw it on the floor, break it, pick up half the pieces, leave the other half into the ice maker, and not do anything about it until he gets called out on it.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess that isn't all of it. We better go find it.
Hey, Vince threw out one of my measuring sticks at the tournament.
Yeah.
Oh, it's there. It's at the hotel out in the yard somewhere.
Yeah.
It's true.
Good.
I threw out that stupid Goblin Pass measuring ruler. I was like, I hate them. They're stupid, and I got rid of it.
Are you talking the little red whippy stick?
No,
okay.
No.
All right.
So Tom has this dumb. It was from it was for Skull Pass, right?
No, it was from the Hobbit Goblin Town.
Oh, okay.
Well, like the Hobbit Escape from Goblin Town.
Got it. Okay. So it's like this brown, awful, ugly, thick. What it was each 12 inches, right? Each one was 12 inches.
Yeah.
13,
right?
Not 12. It's 13. Like the base is 13, and when you fold it out, it's 24.
Yeah. So, and it has like this folding joint in the middle, and it's always just like it's squidgy, and it just knocks everything over. It's like you know what it is? It looks like those stupid nunchucks that Skaven has. That's what it looks like, and I could not abide.
There, we got through the problem.
There it is. Yeah, I feel like we really made a breakthrough here today.
Yeah, sure. Well, maybe you can dig it up in Havoc 2018. There you go.
We'll see if we can find it out there. All right, gentlemen. Well, we've gone on for a while here. Is there any final closing thoughts the two of you would like to give on Holy Havoc?
It was an amazing time. That was every game I enjoyed, and at the end of each day, I was like, man, I'm super glad to be down here. We had really high expectations going down. We'd been there the year before. We had
expectations of the event.
Yep.
Not of how we were going to do.
Oh, sure. But high expectations for how much fun we're going to have. And it met and exceeded those. So,
yeah. Getting to meet new friends, bring the community closer, make it a smaller world.
Yeah. Minneapolis boys, legit.
Yeah. And then playing a lot of cool games that just spark the imagination and then seeing what other people are doing in the army, getting in the hobby, getting to talk a lot of hobby and coming away, starting to plan what the next thing will be, either expanding what you have or building something new for the next event is I mean, that's what it's for. Is just to keep you playing, keep you in the hobby and doing new things. So thank you, everybody who was at Holy Havoc for inspiring us and playing us, and hugs.
There you go. All right. Right on. Yes. Thank you, of course, to Steve, to Vargas, to everybody who ran it. Thank you to both of you fine gentlemen for hosting me here. Yes, to Bell. Thank you for hosting me here in your hobby room.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to hang out with you. Thank you for entertaining me and playing some fun games while I was up here in Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
This
Siege.
Week. It's been very awesome. And I hope to come back and hang out again real soon. So but for all of you out there, thank you very much for watching. Certainly appreciate it as always. Tom gets no closing thoughts today. I'm shutting him down.
Yeah.
Shutting him down.
Look, you just
I was gonna
hold up your trophies.
I was gonna flash the Tomb King warband that I just finished.
We're good.
As my closing thoughts.
Next week.
Just hold up your trophies. Just hold up your trophies.
Next week on Warhammer Weekly.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the post credits teaser for next week. There you go.
Yep.
All right. So, but for all of you, thank you very much for watching. As always, we appreciate it, and we'll see you next Wednesday.